Good morning, gamers. How are we doing, everyone? Welcome back to the stream. I went too quick. We didn't do the vocal warm-up today. Nathan, thank you for the 600 stream streak. You're an absolute demon. What is up? Elliot, Argon Cape, Hypersid, SMF, Batarang, what is good? Hot Tub Tuna, Shy FM, what's good? Dick Horsguard, how's it going? Penguini, what's good? Squiggle, what's good? Shy FM, what's good? Reyes, how are you doing? Welcome to the stream, everyone. Out of mana, anyone know Jagged's stance on drop trading from Iron? I don't think they care. Or put it this way, I have personally done it, and I'll admit to it right now. So if the feds are coming, they'll get me first, all right? If you ever see me, though, if you ever see me say that I'm going to stream one day, and then I don't stream that day, that means they got me. So you need to be really, really careful. Okay? What is good, Shavar? How are you doing? What's up, Seb? What's up, Word for What? What is up, Giggles? What's up, Elliot? Here's the thing. I have seen so many absolutely hot garbage takes about skilling in the last little bit. And in the past, I was like, I'm not like a skiller. Like, I've maxed a bunch of accounts, maxed out, whatever. But I'm not a skiller. So my thinking was like, maybe I'll just avoid the skiller discourse. But it kind of seems to me like most of the skilling discourse is literally made by people that genuinely, not only they don't know anything about skilling, I don't even think they play the game or have played it in a great many years. The number one thing I see in RS3 skilling discourse is old school does it like this, RS3 does it like this. Old school is the superior game, therefore RS3 is wrong. Like, just the absolute stupidest takes of all time. So, I thought, if any old idiot's allowed to roll up and do a bunch of skilling discourse, I mean, surely that includes me. I am also a local idiot. So, in today's stream, Pup and I are going to be going through every single skill in RuneScape in alphabetical order, non-combat first, combat second. We can debate what is combat and what isn't. I did it like this for a reason. Pup and I will each be proposing, well, we might agree on some of them, one change per skill to fix the skill, okay? And then, my favorite part of all, for each change, old school RuneScape poll style, chat is going to get to vote 75% passes. If it gets passed, that means it is coming out in RuneScape to you next week. That is what it means. These are gonna come out, all right? If you guys pass them, they're coming out. So with that said, it's gonna be a fun time. I am looking forward to it. Also, this is a meme about the skilling discourse when you're talking about something old school does versus something that RS3 does. Yeah, with RS3 on the top. I agree. I'm with you a little bit. But yeah, anyway, with that said, we've actually put a good amount of thought into this. I know the intro was a little, igniting some flame. I'm not flaming anybody. I just thought it'd be fun to talk about RuneScape skills because a lot of them are great and a lot of them are not great and haven't been updated in literally forever. So yeah, with that said, I'm looking forward to today. Let's get into it. Oh, is it 70% now? Okay, got it. So 70% will be passed. Also, can I just say, I started my stream today to Octagon Cake posting a picture of my first shelf. Okay. I know this is the worst shelf ever. I'm very aware. But chat, here's the thing. My person and my channel and my life, they're an like there's an evolution. Right? So, even though I started, these are my humble beginnings in September of last year. Chat, I put up earlier today a floating shelf. I did the bracketing. I did everything. So I'm just putting it out there. We're getting better. Improvements are being made. Look at the evolution. This side up and it's actually pointing up. I mean, that's a W. Look at me, the drywall mounts going in, using the good ones, drilling them in, putting holes in the wall. I mean, judge not by their first shelf, judge by the most recent shelf. It's a good shelf. It's a shelf anyway. Can you show it with a level on it? So I actually did level it. The problem is the floor isn't level. So the shelf is level to the floor, but it's not level with the bubble. You can't even see it on stream. Yeah, okay. So all of that is going to change too. I'm chatting with Elgato. They're going to send me some tech for my setup to put my camera in a different spot. But yeah, look, you can see the shelf. It's back there. It's right behind there, next to the cat, and the other shelf, and the light panels, and my signed Claude Giroux jersey that means nothing to anybody. There's a lot of stuff in here. I'm just putting it out there. Things have never been better. Hi, buddy. Are you with us? Are you good? He's out, bro. Are you good? Bro is literally dreaming. He is literally dreaming right now. Oh, he's back out again. Fair enough. But yeah, welcome everyone. Why am I? Thank you so much for the 45 months. Appreciate it. Jamma, thank you for the 107 months. You're an absolute legend. I appreciate you. Mr. Skeletal, thank you for the 44 months. I appreciate that. Reyes, thank you for the 3 months. Appreciate that. Sempi Bands, that was 2 days ago. All right, thank you for the sub 2 days. You're probably not here, but you know what? It happens. Okay. With that said, though, do you guys understand the premise? Are you down? I think it's going to be a very fun day. I'm looking forward to it. So with that said, I'm going to give Big Pup a call, and we're going to work our way down the Miro board.
Hello.
Good morning.
Ah!
You were too
Hi.
loud as well. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. Are you ready to fix skilling once and for all?
I am, yes.
I'm kind of excited. I'm not going to lie. I think I've seen so much skilling discourse and so many takes, but I don't think I've seen someone go through every skill and just one change. Could be a big change, could be a small change, just to make the game better. And I'm super, super curious to see how chat votes on some of these too, because I let them know it's a 70% pass like it is in old school. If it passes, these changes are coming into RuneScape. That's how this is going to work. The stakes have never been higher.
Are they? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the stakes are high in this one. So, yeah, we're gonna start for our non-watching the stream viewers. We're starting from agility. We're gonna do all the non-combat skills alphabetically all the way down, and then we're gonna go through the combat skills after that, just because I think the kind of changes to a combat skill are a little bit different than what you would change about a skilling skill. So with that said, Big Pup, are you prepared?
I am. I did want to congratulate you on your shelf, though.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I know, right?
You're welcome.
Compared to the first shelf, right? Like, come on.
You're a big kid now.
He's getting better. He's getting better. I can't wait for it to come plummeting down in the middle of the stream today. That would be like the ultimate finale.
Nah, you'll be fine.
But yeah, with that said, I thought it'd be fun to alternate like who's going first and who's going second. So if you want to kick us off with agility, take me where you want to take me.
Okay. So one change. So we can talk about this. Firstly, trading agility just isn't fun. Let's be real. It's just not that fun.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
From my short time playing old school, the two kind of things that, so the one thing that was really cool was Hello to Polka, which was like the Jersey mini game, kind of like heist. That was really fun. Because it gives you that active kind of, but like reactive part of training where you're actually using your brain and thinking about things. The second one that I think might be more mixed upon whether people actually like it or not was the whole rooftop agility. I'm a big fan of rooftop agility.
Really? Okay.
It kind of gets you around the game world, and I think that's really cool.
Interesting.
It takes me to all the little like the rooftops that I, like I'm in Falador. You just rolling around Falador. I feel that's funner. I feel like a lot of our agility courses are kind of out of the way in the middle of nowhere, which I don't like as much.
Okay, so if you're going to boil this down to one change, and by the way, you can put it on the little pink sticky, because the pink ones are going to be yours, the blue ones are going to be mine.
The pink sticky,
Yeah, let me know where you want it.
So, one change, it needs to be how in depth or how like
we have about 6 minutes per skill.
Okay. Okay.
For both of us.
Got you. What are your thoughts on agility?
Oh, you want my thoughts before your change?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
I mean, I have my change in mind, but yeah.
Got it. So my thing with I mean, actually, why don't we do your thoughts and then your change, and then I'll give you my thoughts and then my change,
Okay.
and then that way it'll be
I
a little
think
more structured.
it needs, it basically just needs an active skilling method, kind of like heists. It just needs that. It needs an agility heist.
Okay, so you'd be looking for like a hallowed sepulcher kind of situation.
I want that. Yes.
Got it. Makes sense. I think that's more than fair enough. So are you gonna chuck that on your little sticky note?
Yes.
Cool. And then I will chat about what I think about agility. I think agility sucks to train. I fully agree. My main reason why I think agility is bad to train is I think all of the agility courses that exist in the game, other than one, were made basically with pre-EOC mechanics in mind. No surge, no dive. And because of that, they feel really slow. Like, you'd think if you were training agility, you would be moving quickly. So while I am a big sepulcher enjoyer, and I do think like more active agility methods, I think the big issue is like they could probably make changes to all of the agility courses in the game and just make them better. But my biggest issue with agility is not to use old school as a comparison, but I feel like in old school, agility is actually a useful skill because the shortcuts matter.
Yep.
Whereas in RS, the shortcuts don't really seem to matter ever because you have so many accessible teleports everywhere. And it's kind of hard to make agility useful in an instance where you've already given players a bajillion teleports so they wouldn't need agility. So you're looking at a completely useless skill and no good way to make it useful other than like taking teleports away from people, which nobody wants. As players, people aren't going to vote yes to that. So my thinking was very, very different from you. Even though I do think Sepulcher would be great, I would actually change the usefulness of agility.
Interesting. Okay.
And the way I would do that is, one, if you are max agility level, your run energy never drains. And two, you know when you level defense, every defense level, you get 0.1% damage reduction? So once you're level 99, you have 9% damage reduction just based on your def level? What if agility gave you an evasion chance of the same amount? So as you level agility, you actually gain the ability to evade attacks at a max amount of like 10%. So that is going to be my change to agility.
That's your
so
change.
I'm not touching the core that is admittedly not great, but I'm making it useful so that
Giving
it matters.
it a use.
Yeah.
Interesting. I do agree that it just doesn't have a use. Like, it just kind of, it's just there.
Now my Reza will miss even more. Well, no. So
Well, no, you
can code it like the Lucky perk, where Lucky doesn't
Yeah.
ever steal your res. If you use res, you're not able to evade an attack until you get hit. You can just code around that. So no, I'm not stealing your resonance. I'm making agility actually matter in the game. Okay.
Yep.
So chat, it's time for you guys to vote. Are there any other arguments you want to make?
No.
Okay. It's polling time. Oh, yep.
I will say, I think shortcuts should be made more relevant. I think
I agree with that too, but that isn't one change.
Yeah. They need that. I'm happy with my one change.
All right. Chat, get your votes in. We're going to do these votes quickly, by the way. You have like 15 seconds to vote. And then I'm finishing it with a pass or a fail.
It's a yes or a no.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of no's. Interesting. All right. Time active. I'm stopping it at 20 seconds. And we have a pass on the Hallowed Sepulcher. All right. So RuneScape 3 is getting the Hallowed Sepulcher.
Let's go.
That little green marker means it passed. Congratulations, Pup. Wow, 1 for 1. You're shooting well. All right, time for mine. I have a feeling mine's a little more controversial, but if you really think about it, agility needs a use. This would be the easiest way to actually make it a skill that matters. Get your votes in. Go right ahead. Oh, I'm getting bodied.
You are slightly losing. You know what? You're coming back.
Yeah. Okay. Damn. See, I thought that people would want more damage reduction. I'm not going to lie. But That is a fail. It's very close, though. It's a 50-50, which that's only 20% off an old school poll pass. But I respect the chat. I respect your votes. So this one will not be coming out next Monday. We'll put that one on ice for a bit. I'll repitch it a little later, and we'll see if I can get more backers next time around.
Unfortunate.
Someone said they voted no because Soul Split is good. What?
What?
But what?
No, we're not getting one guide round.
No,
we're moving on.
I'm not
Moving
getting one
on.
guide. All right. Next up, we've got archaeology. Also, by the way, Pup, I don't know if you want to just copy your blank thing and then paste it all the way down. That might be a good move while I'm babbling about archaeology. So archaeology is an interesting thing to me. I think the story of the skill is great. I think the dig sites look great. But when you look at the actual training of the skill, every single version of training archaeology is exceptionally boring. On top of that, if you've ever tried archaeology as an Iron Man, it's just even more annoying because material caches need to exist. And the reason they need to exist is basically, as far as I can tell, so bots can make money. I'm not even kidding. I genuinely think that's the only purpose for material caches. Like, real players don't do them. Bots do them. And then mains buy them from the bots so they can train archaeology. So I'm kind of thinking there are kind of two options for archaeology. Really three. I mean, the three that are coming to mind, the first one is very obvious, is like just get rid of the chrono relic system, separate skilling and PVM relics. Like, that's a very obvious one. My second thought is, what if you got rid of the need for material caches by making it so that when you excavated stuff, you would get, in general, most of the materials you need for the restoration? Because that, you know, makes a certain amount of sense. And then my third thought is very similar to your agility change, is archaeology of every skill in RuneScape. It's a very vibey skill to train, but it is so freaking boring, bro. It is so boring. And I feel myself wishing there was a way to train it more actively. Like, I wish there was a way to train it fully actively, and like, I don't even care if it's that much faster or whatnot, but just sometimes if I'm trying to actively train Arc, I feel like I can't. I have to plan it around my AFK time. So with that said, Mod Ryan's in chat. Scatter!
I love archaeology. It's amazing.
Pup, is it safe to come back?
I think it's safe, yes.
Okay. My one change to archaeology.
Oh, there's a couple brewing in your head.
Yeah, I've got two, and I'm really close on both of them. Track just said, can we be site managers for archaeology and then hire children to dig like in the movie Holes?
Oh, now I'm down.
You know, I wasn't thinking that. All right, I am gonna say active archaeology method. Actually, that exists in a vacuum. I don't know if that's a good way to word it, but I don't want one that requires me to grind material caches to get mats, and then I can go train actively. I want I'm basically looking for a training method that is actually active. So I can, if I want to train passively, I can get my porters and train passively. If I want to train, you know what I was thinking in my head, you know, when you were like a kid and I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that did this, but you know those like fossil excavation dino dig things as kids?
Yes.
That you'd get where you'd get like a little, it's like a little sand pit with a thing you dig out and you get your little brushes. Like, to me, that's just like 3D ceremonial swords. And it feels like it could be like necromancy rituals where you have like different things going on and distracting you from while you're brushing off the thing, or, you know, your brush breaks or this happens or this happens. And then you're basically just actively doing a thing. You're actually restoring an artifact or digging it out of the ground, and it's active. So that's my arc pick. I want there to be an
Got
active
you.
method.
Understood. I like the thought of it being in a vacuum. It's not related to materials or any of the kind of existing things. I think that's good. My one, it's a simple one. I think it's a very necessary one.
Oh, you're pandering. Oh, you're actually pandering right now.
It's the relic system. It's the relic system and the kind of situation. Old sigils. Did you enjoy old sigils?
No, they sucked ass.
No, they sucked us. They sucked us because every time you wanted to use them, you had to think, is it worth the 73k for me to press the sigil now? And in most cases, it wasn't, but you still wanted to do it because it was fun. And that's exactly what relics are. You're always sitting, is it worth me to swap my relics for this hour PVM, even though I will make less money if I do it? And I think that's complete arse. I think, like, it's the whole choice of fighting fun with the cost is not good. So mine is
I agree
one that
with
I'm a big
you.
fan of.
I think yours is a smaller change than mine, but I think it's a very, very obvious change. Also, Ryan said, where was my invitation to come talk about skilling? Ryan, and I mean this very genuinely, open invitation anytime. Even if we're currently not doing a stream about skilling, you could come on. You could join today. You could join tomorrow.
Yeah.
Literally anytime. You hit me up anytime. I can organize a stream with you to talk about skilling. Call me, like, legitimately.
To be fair, though, I did send Ryan a DM on Discord on the 17th of November and said hi, and he still hasn't replied to it.
Okay, but it's just a hi. He didn't want to make small talk. No, that's not on him.
I just wanted to be his friend.
No, that's on you. Pup, can you handle two Ryans though?
I can handle 2 Ryans, yes.
All right, we're calling
Ryan to join. Taller Ryan, as we call him.
All right. I don't know which Discord you want me to call you on, but I will add you to the call.
Add both of them and see what she picks up on.
I feel like maybe Ryan needs his own column too. You could do that as well if he wants one. Ooh.
I think yes, as long as everyone is under the same page that this
no,
is
no,
just
no, 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 no. We have to freak out. This isn't for fun. All right.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good after evening.
I have to close your stream. Hello, how you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good.
I'm good. I'm currently, well, I'm playing a game. I will not announce what game I'm currently playing. So I'm listening and I will chat, but once this game ends, I'll be more active.
Oh, got it. Perfect.
Is it a game that you hate but keep playing?
I love all games.
That's something a League of Legends player would say.
What's on your list for agility? You have your face cam is over it, so I couldn't read it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. So Pup wanted, and this one actually passed the poll, by the way. So we're polling chat with like old school polling rules. And he wanted an agility heist, so like a hallowed sepulcher, so that you can train agility in a way that requires actual like skill and timing and thinking.
Okay. So
and then
a bigger, more in-depth agility course, but not an agility course.
Yes, essentially yes.
With more actions than just click and wait for animation, I guess, is essentially a bit more skill involved that you're asking
for. With some movement, in there. And of course a timer, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then my thinking was very different, which is I wanted agility to matter more. And my thinking is I wish that shortcuts were useful like they are in old school, but they kind of can't be without taking away people's teleports, which is never going to happen. So pragmatically, my suggestion was to do the same thing how defense gives you damage reduction, but do it with agility, so you get a scaling evasion chance based on your agility level. And I'll tell you right now, the people did not like this one. It was a 50-50 split right down the middle.
Out of curiosity, is that 50-50 split based on the assumption that darkness still has just as much evasion as right now?
I would assume yes.
We didn't even bring up darkness.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought the complaints would be. Oh, sorry, the concerns would have been related to that. I assume that's what you're referencing, dodge chance, essentially.
Yeah.
When you mention evasion, yeah.
I was on board with Rand's plan until he mentioned dodge chance, and then I was like, I'm not sure if I'd like it to have a PVM implication.
That's really interesting, because I think, in theory, agility has become let's say, I mean, okay, I'm over exaggerating it, I guess here, but agility has become a PVM thing in the sense of surge, escape, dive. They're really, yes, used them for movement, but they are a PVM equivalent, sort of like they are part of your PVM
They are,
setup, let's
yeah.
say. And they're now agility requirements, right? They're no longer mage range, and I don't know if dive was ever anything but agility, because I think they changed when dive came out, actually.
Dive, yeah. Blade dive obviously was melee, I think.
Yeah, it was attack at some point, some 60 something attack maybe.
Hmm. And then our archaeology choices. Did you see our archaeology
I
picks?
did. I'll give you my archaeology ones. I'll give you my agility ones after as well, actually.
Okay.
Sure, here we can make a little column for you. Oh, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you have Papas go first. You have to explain your agility choices.
Oh,
Agility
our
Sorry, your
archaeology
archaeology
choices.
choice.
My archaeology choice. The relic system's awful. Should I keep going or should I leave it there?
Usually, I'm a fan of constructive feedback with suggestions of solutions.
Okay.
Yeah, Pup, damn. Just crapping on his work and just leaving it at that is crazy.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Here's my actual thoughts. I think the choice that you have to make whenever you're doing X content of choosing between picking relics for that content, which will make the content probably more fun, or not using the relics but then saving you more money, is an annoying one. Because I'd say most relics, a little bit depends on what you're doing, but most relics are probably actually quite minor to what you're doing. Like the PVM relics, like COE, like over the course of an hour, the adren you gain probably isn't worth the cost of you actually swapping to it, for example. But everyone does just because it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. So I think partly the chrono cost isn't fun, even though it might be technically good, it's not fun. But then I think also the whole clashing of different types of content relics, where if you had a couple different like always active presets for different things, then the chrono cost wouldn't feel as bad. So
I
that's
think
my
it's
actual
less
feedback.
it's less about the cost itself versus how it feels to lose a currency just because you wanted to switch activities. It kind of feels like it goes against the idea of like a free flowing RuneScape where you can choose your adventure and do what you want to do and you're never locked into anything. And then there are these systems that kind of do the opposite of that and lock you into things.
Yeah.
And it's just the extra action to then think about, oh, I'm going to go and do rune crafting now. I need to swap all my relics. So yeah.
I think, okay. I mean, I agree with you for what it's worth. I think, yeah, look, I guess in hindsight, it's easy to look at the relic system now, and I think I've said it on various social posts. I think there are many improvements that could be made to it. It's one of these really interesting design. How do I go into like fundamentals of like good design is choice. Choice is generally good, right? But choice comes with, to be honest, every pro of good game design comes with fault or potential cons, and I guess it's the same thing. Choice is good, however, to your point, it doesn't feel like meaningful choice, or it feels like there is friction in the choice that you make, etc., etc. I think it's one of those ones where something that I like advocate for when thinking about design in general, or even just design solutions, is realistically, like just without thinking about consequence for a moment, what if you just unlocked when you unlock a relic, it's just active, right? There's no concept of monolith power anymore. Relics are just relics. You've what do you call it? You've donated it to the monolith, and then it's now unlocked. Like in theory, to your point, how many of those relics actually overlap? Really, it's probably only a couple of the combat ones for
Not
the most
many,
part, because to your point, I don't know. There's the Abyss rune crafting one, and one of the PVM ones, and then the luck ring. Like, really, do we mind if you have those overlapping? Absolutely not. But then it's like, okay, the economy of chronotes is dead with that change. Like now, if you start thinking about the cons, like what is the point of chronotes? By definition, they exist to make sure that, to make sure that the skill itself has value, repeatable value, collections, right? Sorry, not just collections. Actually, yeah, collections are the main incentive for where you get chronotes from.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm waffling because I was in the middle of a fight at the same time.
because you're
On a
concentrating, so
game, on a
the words
game.
just keep
On
flowing.
Apologies.
oh, you're PvPing in RuneScape. Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway, that's a thought. So it's like on paper, I
Thank
think
you,
it'd be
Lobo Wobo and
awesome
Zelda Armor.
if they were
Appreciate it.
just
And
you.
Bergie
The
as well.
milestone
And
is you
Spider,
get
thank
to
you.
X archaeology level, you do X mystery, you've obtained this thing. It's essentially a permanent benefit. Perfect. So that sounds great in practice. I think that is generally fine, but you'd have to solve for the solutions. I think what's common, solve for the issues that we mentioned, like where are chronotes useful? How do they work now? You could argue there is a world where this is what some ideas people come up with, right? And I'll explain why they are. By the way, you can tell me to be quiet at any given point because I could talk about this for ages.
No, send it.
Okay, so some people will have ideas like, well, what if you could spend 10 times the chronote cost of swapping to the relic to unlock it permanently? Because people will say, I'd happily
Yes.
spend 1,000,000 chronotes to unlock these things. Now, in practice, that sounds fine as well, right? But I think it's one of those, it's a bit of a complexity in game design that only exists because they existed the way they currently do first, if that makes sense. Like, you probably wouldn't implement it that way originally, but it's easy to look at it and go, okay, here's a problem. How could we solve it? Nothing wrong with that, but I'm always an advocate for solve it as if it was the original solution, not a like band-aid or a solution on top of a problem.
Yeah.
I think if you look at like relic presets right now, they are a part solution to an already existing relic problem, and we could keep putting those solutions in place. And that's kind of where you get into systems in RuneScape over the years where they've kind of turned into something they weren't originally supposed to be. Anyway, that's like the TLDR. I think it's definitely worth thinking about how to fix relics because ultimately, I do agree it'd be great if they are just things you unlock and then you use them. I'm sure there are some relics that people say I'd want to turn them off, right? Like bait and switch. It'd make no sense if you were permanently cooking your raw fish forever. But yeah, anyway, long story short, I agree with your let's fix the relic system. That's one good point on there.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the purpose of chronotes as well, and I understand like there's their original purpose, which was to, it's a replayability and to have an economy component. I would question if they're not useful enough as the currency that you need to buy the upgrades from the shop, like spending 500,000 chronotes for the outfit and the highest tier matic. Like obviously they're more useful now because of people need to swap the relics all the time, but I don't know that they would go to completely useless if they weren't needed for swapping relics and
is also
research as
people that-
well, which people
Yeah.
use to buy Arc XP every day. So
I did that just for 200 mil. I just
I think
researched
you
it
could.
away.
I think you could get rid of chronotes for relics without necessarily like making them completely useless. But with that said, I think I'm actually gonna swap mine because as much as I kind of want an active arc method,
He's
I would.
backtracking.
I'm actually gonna jump on get rid of the relic system too. I think it's pretty like obviously the most. It's the most obvious thing that doesn't make arc something that isn't. So I'm gonna
I
pull
actually
that.
really liked your one.
Really, you wanted a hallowed sepulcher for archaeology?
Maybe not a hallowed sepulcher, but like, yes, that would have been nice.
Okay, you put a room in the POH, and it's a museum room. You take your artifacts that you've pulled and restored, and then you have to like polish them and shine them and set them up in a specific configuration to get XP. No, I just think that's too like pie in the sky. That's too big of a change.
Design something like that was repeatably fun, then it's a win. But it's really hard to do that.
Someone said I just described veil totems for archaeology. But yeah, okay, here's a question. So I'm gonna run the poll for chat. And while I do that, I have a feeling we know how this one's gonna go. Mr. Ryan, do you have any changes that you would want to make to archaeology?
Well, that's an interesting one because he developed it.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe you don't specifically know me by now, but there's always improvements we can make across the board. I think that's one of the great things about the creative space in general, whether it's game design or not. Everyone is always looking at like what could be improved on. I will give you two that aren't on here, and I will break the rules and give two because why not? I think that there is a world where there is let's call it a ninja fix, ninja strike, sort of like update that could happen to archaeology, which is things like resolve the relic system, add things like the archaeology storage, so we solve that problem in regards to the relics. And then do some general like quality of life within archaeology, like some of the smaller things. Like if you look at how it is today, I think there are some. Well, actually, I'm not going to talk about the specifics, but I think there's some little things you could do. And then the second one, in terms of new content, I always said when we were originally working on archaeology with the team that we wanted to see like what other updates could you sort of do to the skill that isn't the dig sites, because that's what everyone's been adding, but that doesn't mean that's how it should be forever. And we always had the idea of doing expeditions, which is essentially think kind of like you could spend an amount of gold to essentially set up an expedition. Think like an Uncharted Isle, but I'll just give you some context. Where you can then essentially assign some people to help, and other players could come to your island or wherever it is, wherever you've gone that you've expedited to, and they could do archaeology on that sort of that. Let's call it an island for now. They can work towards the progress and progressing it, and these things could have. There's a lot of context to this idea because it's kind of like things that never came to fruition. But this concept, there's some screenshots I think on the wiki of when we did the archaeology demo. It's kind of got this concept of like a lost area in it, which is a self-contained sort of little dungeon that has archaeology level requirements and item requirements to get through. But anyway, the idea of expeditions is hire your friends to come and help you go on an archaeology mission to uncover something or other. Makes use of the existing skill. You fund it with money, and other people take part and do it for you essentially if you want them to. And that's the sort of thing where anyone who is rich could fund a. As an example, this was discussed before Anachronia came out, because when we were discussing archaeology all the way back then, and we said, what if you set up an expedition to go to Anachronia/Fossil Island? You could spend 500 mil to set it up, and 20 people could come and do it for you to essentially break through the barrier, get across the island, go in the cave, etc., etc. Anyway, that's the long story short of expeditions. I keep it short because I don't talk in short sentences. So.
Understood. I enjoy the idea of just paying random people to level it for me.
Paying my broke friends to train archaeology for me sounds awesome.
Yes. The expedition things, like, I think that's the thing that I'm not, like, it's kind of tough because a lot of skills are the samey, but I think archaeology specifically for me is whatever dig site you add, it doesn't really matter. They're all trained exactly the same way. And I think that's, like, I know obviously, like, for example, cooking, it's all the same, right? But for archaeology, it feels like it's a skill that has a lot of depth, but the actual act of training it is still the same. So something different would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be. That's the interesting thing. I think at the moment, of course, over the years we've been adding more dig sites, more artifacts, etc. But archaeology could be many things. Like if you think once upon a time, farming, not exactly, but it was just allotments. It wasn't. It was more than that. But allotments, and then it's fruit patches, tree patches, spirit patches, farming animals, different types of ways of training the skill. And I think archaeology could benefit from more. To your point, archaeology has two sort of components, which is one, it's great for unlocking lore. It's rewarded content, is story about the game, but equally it could be unlocked via not the current way of doing it, right? Which is just excavation, restoration.
Mm-hmm.
No, that makes sense. Okay. I'm gonna pull Arc Expeditions. Let's see what the chat thinks. I have a feeling they're gonna be down. I do think conceptually the Arc would be kind of the same, but it adds kind of a personal aspect to it of people taking kind of different roles. So I'm curious
It's
to see
also
what they say.
it's a reward vehicle, I would say, for reference. So it's like think generic expeditions are more for e.g. training, or for, I don't know, maybe a specific grind a specific artifact or materials. But then you'd have ones which are more, say, uniques, one-offs, e.g. you go to the island of X and it's got a boss on it. I'm just making that up, but that's the sort of one you might need to fund. It has the realm as well of having community expeditions. Imagine it's an entire community. The museum funded it, cost them billions of what they tax off the G. That's not
That's
canon,
kinda
that lore.
sick.
But and then
Mhm.
everyone in the community has to uncover the island's archaeology, right? Think breaking into Caradet, but on like a grander scale. Anyway, sorry, I'm
It kind of
overselling
makes
my
me
idea.
no, that's sick. It kind of reminds me of like imagining if heists had been an archaeology unlock almost, where the community had to uncover the, you know, the even access to the
Yeah.
heist and figure it
Yeah.
out. Yeah, very cool. You got a pass, by the way, by 1%.
Oh,
Oh.
right.
We got a
Okay, thanks.
71, so you're in. So the people will expect this on Monday.
Okay. We're just building the roadmap now from your stream.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so we've done agility and archaeology. I think instead of going through the skills in order, why don't we ask chat what skills they would want us to discuss next? And then we can kind of jump around.
hmm
So chat, if you guys want to put a skill on the board, we can think about
Invention.
it.
That's an interesting
I'm
one.
seeing some invention.
Oh,
I'm
That's a
seeing...
invention.
multi-level
Yes,
one.
let's talk about invention. No,
All right.
that's biased.
Invention o'clock.
Okay.
No, let's do it. A lot of people are saying invention. Also, I love the crowd work from Ryan. He knows. He knows how to do this. All right.
But okay.
Invention it is.
Who's starting?
Okay, well, I can introduce the topic of invention. So with
Yeah.
regard to invention, I think what we should do is we could each kind of go through how we feel about the skill. I can go first if we would like, and we can just kind of have an open discussion. But to me, invention has like a couple main issues. I'm actually completely fine with the way that it's trained. I don't mind that. I'm kind of okay with divine charges and how they work. I think the biggest two issues with invention are one, to me, it's the discouragement of that's not a word, by the way, I don't think, in that context. But
Pretend it is.
yeah, we're pretending it's a word. Discouraging kind of side grades in terms of gear, because instead of just being able to get a side grade that's good at one boss, you would then also need to get all of the perks on it. And I find that kind of a friction point is invention kind of pushes you to having one set of gear that you hold on to forever. So that's one. And then two is just the actual acquisition of perks themselves. So it's the RNG component. It's one of my big ones is the fact that like you can't see perk combos inside the game. You have to go to the wiki and pull up a calculator. To me, that's a big problem where I would love to see even just like a repository of like, hey, you're looking for crackling. These are all of the known crackling combos. And this is a button you can press to set your level. And even just little things like that, that would make it just a lot easier. But also, I know a lot of people bring up the RNG in invention and how frustrating that can be. So those would be like my main invention-related thoughts.
I agree with all of that. Really, I think honestly, I'm on board with how it's leveled. I think it being leveled passively by training other skills is perfectly fine. I almost wish there were more things you could augment for potentially some of the like artisan skills that you could level up as you're training. Because I feel like it's already pretty much you level it while you're doing other things. I feel like you could lean into that almost slightly more personally. I think everything about invention is good except the whole perking thing. I think that is the core problem for me. I think basically what Ryan said, the act of feeling like you have to perk one armor set and then that is your armor set. And then if you want to get a new armor set, you have to then re-get your perks, or it can be, I guess, frustrating that if you want a switch for something, like let's say you wanted like a crowing switch, for example, you'd probably also then need aftershock on it, depending on what you're doing. Like it's like a crowing switch is fine, whatever. You switch to the perk you want, you're happy. But then you need the whole extra perks that you needed as well. Like if you had a turtling switch on your armor legs, you'd also need the other perk as a dupe, which just feels a bit odd as well. I think the whole... I don't... Everyone's going to flame me. I don't mind, personally, the system of actually getting the perks. I think it's using the perks that becomes frustrating for me.
Fair enough. Ryan, you wanted to talk about invention, so I feel like you probably have thoughts.
Yes. Mine is, you have to bear in mind, mine comes from the perspective of the bigger picture, let's say. So there might be a world where some things I say sound controversial, but we'll see.
Oh, that's fine.
So I think that invention is actually a really great skill, but it has its individual flaws, right? No, you guys have kind of already alluded to some of them. Looking at like, I'll start with the, let's call it the more juicy stuff. I think there is a world where you do not augment items. I think the concept of augmenting something and then putting gizmos on it to essentially apply perks is cool in practice. It reminds me of a lot of various other games I've played. We could use like the simplest ones, probably like a Minecraft, right? Like you enchant a weapon or enchant a tool, if everyone's familiar with that. However, I think the way in which it's kind of presented and now got the game to where it is, to your point you mentioned, you kind of have to augment all the pieces of gear you want. You have to attach the various gizmos to it of perks you want. If you want to change them, you used to have to take them off and lose them. So then we added something where you could take them off and keep them, right? Which is the separator. That has a really high level requirement, of which it's also needs to be high level to say, like I'm just talking about the complexities of stringing things together, which kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier with relics, where we've kind of added solutions over time. But yeah, sales pitch. I actually think there is a world where you apply perks to gizmos, and gizmos sit in, let's just call it your invention tool belt for now. And you can apply X amount. So you could have 5 active perks, hypothetically, and then you make perks, which unlocks them, and they're essentially in that box, and you activate the ones you want. This does change that there is no more switching in combat, because there is no, like, I can have a preset 2 that I press a keybind to swap to perk set 2, but it does do the whole, I just choose what perks I want, and I've set myself up for the combat encounter I'm going to take part in. Yeah, that's the simple version. There is an extension to that, though.
Sorry, I want you to know that is eerily similar to what I had previously written on my sticky note that we could talk about after, but like almost word for word. But yeah, continue.
The similar point there is as well is I think that invention, from a perk perspective, kind of comes back to what I talked about with archaeology, is it doesn't need to be the only place you get perks. I think the concept, when you think about it, it is a gizmo, which is a manufactured item that you throw components in and it gains power. I've always liked the idea of what if a mascot dropped the catalyst of a mascot energy, and it's essentially a mascot themed perk. So perks can become drops from bosses, and you apply it. It's just that invention manufactures perks based on materials, but you could essentially get perks as drops. But again, I think like the application of perks is a big problem, and then 2, the getting of perks is, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but this is the same, by the way, sorry, I'll repeat myself. This is the same as the archaeology thing. If we remove relic power, chronotes have way less use. If we give you make perk, unlock perk in system, a lot of items no longer need to be disassembled, right? The RNG aspect is what makes a lot of items leave the game, because you're not guaranteed the output. So that obviously is something to consider and what to solve. But I think some version of unlock perks and utilize them is probably better than spend ages random rolling, trying to get the right one, needing more than one of them per gear set. Because I think RuneScape's kind of like, I know everyone probably thinks at this stage, we expect you, or we ask of you, to play all 4 combat styles, right? Because as a player, you want to level all styles up. You want to get them all to 99 or 120. It is not a class-based game whereby you just commit to one style. You generally want to have gear in all of them, and that takes time. And I think perks is equally a big point in all of the styles, right? Like you need a whole suite of perks for all 4 combat styles. Yeah, that's a TLDR again. There's loads more thought and reasons and answers, but yeah.
Can I pitch you my idea? I think I may have already pitched you my idea before.
Well, are you
but
going to
it's
pitch me
similar
my
to what you
idea,
said.
or?
Well, it was my idea first.
Okay, fine.
Maybe
I
not.
respect that.
No. So my thinking was part of the POH rework. You do like an invention dummy, one for each style, that you add gizmos to. And then any augmented gear you wear of that style that is augmented, but you don't put a gizmo on it, defaults to those perks. So if you want a chroming switch, you can still have a chroming switch, because putting chroming on a gizmo on you will override what's on your dummy, but you can set your default perks once for each style permanently. So any future augmented gear you want will come with the, Aftershock 4E2 Precise 6 Genocidal or whatever it may be. That was what my idea was.
Okay, so you have base perks, and then you can essentially have, let's call them overridden perks, like extra perks on equipment.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
exactly.
keep the idea of switching, but it would remove the annoyance of needing to perk multiple.
It would allow
sets
you to
of
trade
things.
gear more and share gear more with your friends and sell gear if you didn't want it anymore, buy new gear. And when new gear comes out, it's not this cumbersome, oh, I guess I need to go buy 2 more lances.
Yep, I have to agree with that. I mean, that's honestly what my main core issue with the invention is. So I'm gonna have to pick a different. I'm just gonna say more augmentable tools. But the main thing for me is basically that whole concept of using the perks is annoying because you have to perk multiple things. And question from Mod Ryan. Obviously, you mentioned that if you remove the RNG aspect of getting a perk, in theory, less items leave the game. But what if you just changed or slightly balanced it so that your average items leaving the game is still the same? You just then obviously can't get lucky or unlucky because you need X items.
You definitely could, but I guess just as an example, right? Let's just take, I don't know, a perk that is a 1% chance, and it requires, I'm making this up, 4 Ilizhankan components. Are we about to ask someone to get 50 Ilizhankan components to, like, meet the odds on that? Just as an example. I exaggerated that one.
I mean, I'd say yes. That's what I would expect.
I think most people would prefer that probably than the idea of spending that amount and also not getting the perk.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's a good point. So I think if the perk was permanent, yes. Right? Like, you could apply it all the time. If that was for one weapon, I think the answer is absolutely not.
I think that's where
you
it
know?
comes in is with, I think it was P4E2 back in the day, where it was quite rare, and I think it's also flanking 40 equivalent 2, which is pretty rare. It's fine to get one. It then becomes tricky when you need 5 or 6. So I think that is, yeah. I think if you combined, well, if you added in the whole concept of a base perks that you use, I don't think going for a rare perk and knowing you're spending a lot of money on that perk is as bad. Even though on average you're still spending exactly the same amount of money as you would now.
Someone in the chat also recommended or had the thought of, if you fail a perk roll, disassembling that gizmo and getting some of the components back on it. I don't know that I like that as much as just removing the RNG from it. I think it just gets confusing.
It seems like a band-aid to the
that's sort of how I feel about it too.
Someone in the chat mentioned about some of these sound like overhauls rather than simple changes, which is completely fair. I think in the realms of, like, we could keep it simple. I think to the point of, to do some of the things, like, let's say with hindsight, full overhauls make more sense, but some more simpler invention changes you could make, just to your point, is, I think you mentioned earlier, Ryan, you don't know what perks you can actually get or how to get the perk combo you want. What is there a world where in game you just pick the perk combo you want and it gives you a cost for it? As an example, it just says it's 20 Ilizhankan components and 50 of this, and that's like, okay, thanks. Click it, done, and you just get it. Like, that's the combination of, you tell the game what perks you want, they tell you how much it costs, and you supply it, and it's guaranteed. And that's like, I want to say the simple change, but that is a way of doing it.
Yeah, I've seen a couple things floating around by different people where, because on the wiki you kind of have to put in the combo and then see what you get, whereas I've seen people have calculators where you can put what you want and it will tell you the best way to get it, which sounds kind of the same thing, but when you're going for a really niche perk, it's very, very useful. So something in game where you can literally just say, hi, I want AS42, and it tells you what to use would be significantly beneficial.
Yeah, round a bit of information, which I don't mind, and maybe it sounds odd that I'm saying it on this stream, but it's perfectly fine. I can happily say it anywhere. Is invention, perks. What percentage? It's a question to the chat.
My chat.
Every chat, anyone who's listening, is of those who have, for every augmented item in the game, what percentage of those items do you think have perks on, or have at least one perk? But to
Oh,
make that question clear, if there are
that's a good
10
question.
augmented items in game and only 5 of them have at least one perk on, that the answer will be 50%.
I
didn't
think
enjoy
I
the
know
maths
the
lesson.
answer to this one, so I'm going to
I
abstain.
think it's going to be surprisingly low. But then I would say 60%. I don't think it's insanely low because a lot of people that actually have interacted with invention probably are using invention, but there definitely will be those people that have things augmented with nothing on them. I'm gonna say 60.
I'm going to let chat vote by means of a poll.
Oh, that's a good one.
Get your votes in, and we'll see how right there. Although I will say this, even just posing that as a question, I think will influence the answer you get, because you wouldn't
It's
be
true.
asking if the answer
You would be asking.
wasn't crazy.
I feel like it could be a non-crazy one, but still, if it's less than like 95%, it's still crazy.
It's still like a huge problem. It says that the
Yeah,
perking part is the problem.
exactly. For what it's worth, I don't have the specific number, but well, I don't want to misquote it, but I will say that it is less than, 1 in 4 people. So let's just say 75%. It's less than that.
Okay.
Which, just like keeping the numbers simple for a moment, if 4 of you have augmented items and 1 of you doesn't have a single perk on it, there is an interesting question there, which is why not? Because ultimately you could open any gizmo, put in any random components, I don't know, just 6 precise, 5 or 9 precise components, right, and get a decent precise gizmo.
Yeah.
It's kind of the overhead of invention is quite high. Understanding it's kind of the revolution problem, to be honest with you, which is people who want to use revolution. There are many different types, right? But like, if you just start to the game and someone says, "Oh, just use revolution," if you're not interested in, learning abilities, you still have to understand what order to put your bar in. And it's kind of the same for perks, which is, oh, just put some perks in your gear, but what perks? How do I get those perks? Which
Yeah.
there is the overhead of actually you need someone to tell you what perks to do. So yeah, I think in general, that number should be almost 100%, right? If you're going to augment your items, why wouldn't you put the most basic perks on there? It's just an interesting point of view I'd like to give you guys all just sort of. Sorry, I'm talking to your chats now. I feel like
No,
a
that's
streamer,
good.
but is like the idea that some things that sound simple for many players, also maybe for yourself, if you're an active player, isn't simple for everyone. And I think like invention as an elite skill, it's great that it is at least further back in the journey, but it's still complex. It's very complex to understand, to get into, to really understand what's going on. If you didn't have the wiki, um, not to derail the conversation, but I think the same can be said for clue scrolls. Without like other tools, like understanding and doing clue scrolls at speed is obviously very complicated.
Yeah.
It's like a
I
total
think
side
invention.
point, but fully agree with that
I
on Clue
apologize. Yeah,
Scrolls.
I'm
I think
derailing the
they're like the
conversation.
most like gate kept is the wrong word, but until you have all of the teleports and the whole outfit, clues are kind of miserable to do. And most people, I would reckon, give up before they get to the point of getting the outfit. So they stop doing the activity before the point that it becomes fun because of all the stuff you need for it to become
I'd
fun.
almost put dungeoneering in that
I would
block as
too.
well.
Yep. For the second gate stone, right? That you need
But
to do the
yeah,
elite
and the
tasks
outfit and
and the
the
outfit.
other things,
And
or even
dungeoneering
kind of
is really
simple
hard
things
before you get those things.
like things like crypt path. I don't recall them being ever explained in the game, but when you do DG, that's a very very core component of it, and I think it's that extra kind of like I have to leave the game and go and use external resources, which isn't always bad, but I think in some cases is bad.
They made the outfit easy to get today, by the way. Just so you
Oh,
know. So you buy
well,
it
that
with
is very
DG
nice.
tokens and it's a very low amount. But my big thing is I thought I was bad at dungeoneering and everybody was flaming me, and it turns out I just hadn't done the elite tasks. And as soon as I did the elite tasks, within 3 hours I was in the top 10% on the leaderboard. And I thought I was the problem, and instead it was just PSA to everyone is like, just do the elite tasks, get your second gate stone. But to me, that's like the kind of thing that should be core. Like, it's too fundamental to be locked behind an elite diary, in my opinion, anyway. But I mean, circling back to invention, yeah, sort of the same thing, where based on the data, perks are very obviously too confusing for a lot of people, and they don't engage with them because of that. So that's sort of that was my main friction point, is like, I would even be really down to see like a community based, like, oh, this is the perk you want. Community members used these combos to get that perk, and then you just click on it. Like, even something like that is better than nothing. But yeah, that's invention.
Sorry,
I think
quick thing
there
on
would be
invention.
go ahead, Ryan.
Just on wrapping back on when I was mentioning earlier about the idea of like catalyst, not everything needs to be a gizmo that you manufacture and the perks manufactured. There is a nicety there, which is a kind of, I think it's kind of been alluded to, is there is a set of perks that people tell you to get, and that's the core set of perks that everyone should own and that you should use everywhere. Yes, there are some exceptions depending on the content, or maybe you've got switches at a high level. It basically means that there are some perks that you'll just never have use, and if you're going to add a new perk, it's like, how does it compete with existing ones? I think the concept of like, maybe for example, like catalyst perk, they kind of have a lot of value in the content they're in. Like, let's just say Sanctum, as part of doing the dungeon, you could get a perk that's, I'm just making this up, but like Sanctum Secrets is a perk that really helps you, or does value, or has value in Sanctum only. It's the sort of thing where like you play the content, earn more to like enjoy the content more, let's say, and it's more effective there, or it's only effective there. It's kind of the idea of like perks being more situational, but that doesn't work in the current system, because obviously we're not going to ask you to take perks off and put other ones on, and stuff like that.
It opens a lot of doors to, I mean, that was sort of one of the things that I brought up early on in invention, is like, the current system closes the door on a lot of side grades, and I feel like that's sort of another way of doing that kind of side grade.
Right, I see you've added another.
Yeah, I know. I cheated.
another
I
thing.
cheated. I think one of my big
Well,
gripes. Yeah.
not cheating, but well, you can go ahead, but I dislike your proposal, and I'll explain why.
I mean, here, okay, it's kind of a band-aid for sure. And for
Yep.
Ryan, I don't know if you're watching the stream, but I wrote button to set your invention level because if I added up all of the times I've had to go AFK outside of God Wars, I've probably spent 8 hours standing outside of God Wars, and that hurts my soul a bit. But like, in reality, it's the path of least resistance to, like, realistically, good perks shouldn't be better to get at a lower level. That just shouldn't be a thing. But to me, that involves remaking the whole invention formula. So this might be just the path of least resistance.
Yeah, like the suggestion is not bad. Obviously, it's like everyone wants that, because it is very frustrating just standing at God Wars, especially when someone comes along and regen stats you. But I think going back to that whole thing of the perks, we should be able to see what we're making in game. There is a world where you'd say, "Oh, I want AS42," and the game will roll it with its best chance, including altering your skill level, like not even visually, just behind the scenes.
I think at that stage, honestly, if we went down that route, the higher invention level you are, the better chance you have of getting a perk in general.
I think that's tricky, because obviously there's there's components that work for multiple perks. So obviously, if you're typing in, "Hi, I need this perk," then the game knows this is what you're doing. Yeah, but if you're just putting in the components, then obviously it doesn't work with that system.
Then yeah, it's complex. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm thinking in the choice space, I want P6. Well, you can have anything at this stage. For example, whatever we want to go up to, and we say, yeah, that's 1,000 of this component, please. And if you're, and honestly, at that stage as well, certain perk tiers could even have level requirements. Again, it is quite an overhaul.
Oh yes, this is not a simple change. We're just kind of babbling now.
Yeah. Okay, move on.
Okay, do you have a skill you would like to move on to? That would be my question.
Wait, we haven't voted.
Oh, yeah, we do have to vote. Okay, so you want more augmentable tools. You want me to pull that?
That's mine.
All right, I'm pulling it. Well, we'll start on yours.
Yeah.
All right, chat. The fate of invention rests in your hands. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
No, they can vote. But while they vote, just to check, are you Are you just thinking like, I want a different skill to be augmentable, or are you thinking I want more variety in that space? Because ultimately, every skill could become augmentable, but I guess the question is why? Not to
So
say it shouldn't, but
I like two things, I guess. I like the kind of aspect of passively training it, um, because I think that's kind of how you do it now, and I think leaning into that with more skills is nice. Um, but I think like let's say you had
Are chat pulling mine?
an augmentable, I don't know, an augmentable construction thing, right, for when you're in your POH. But it would only gain XP when you're doing POH construction. So there then might be the thing of, oh, do I want to do POH and then I can get invention XP, or maybe I'm maybe going to do construction contracts, but I'm only getting construction XP. Like, I think there could be a bit more variety on tools that are augmentable that only work with certain pieces of content, or like,
Chat, I
you
want you to
know,
know, if Puppet
that
said
type of
that,
thing.
y'all would have
Also,
voted it
Ryan,
in.
you got obliterated there, brother.
I know. I genuinely, I think chat is just, they hate me. That's crazy. Button to set your invention level, unfortunately, not coming out on Monday.
Not coming out.
Not even by a long shot. Nope. um, all right, I'll do my other one. I have a feeling I know what's gonna happen to it, but
just add more boxes until one of them passes.
oh wait, this one's actually happening. Hold, wait.
Oh, I'm so
maybe
voting too.
I just had terrible ideas before. Yeah, we're so back actually. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, your original idea was great. I think that is I would say the main pain point for most players that interact with invention.
Can you imagine when
Yeah.
new content came out, buying the new thing, and then it was already like, before every content release, I have to spend the entire day before leveling up a bunch of lances.
Yep. Yeah. Um, it's annoying. I going back to that whole thing of people that don't have things perks but have them augmented. I do remember back in the day when I was a young pup
Thanks, chat. Shout out to
that
him.
there was a big misconception of whether augmenting an item is actually better than a non-augmented item with 0 perks, which sounds crazy, but I think a lot of people think that augmenting it is now
Augmented,
better.
because it's called
Yes,
augmented.
because it's all called augmenting, even with no perks. And I think that is a little bit of a confusion, that it's a two-step process. It's not a one step.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. You would think that augmenting a thing augmented it, but instead it's like you're setting it up for the ability to add a perk. I fully
Yeah.
agree with that. Actually, that is a little confusing. There should be a warning anytime you try to attack with a augmented weapon with no gizmos on it, saying, "Hi, you don't
But
have
then,
gizmos on this."
but then someone that uses it to level up without any perks is going to say, "Hi, can I move this warning?" And then we'll have to add
No,
it to an
you
info box.
you tell them, "Did you know you could level up faster
And then they'll say,
if you put
"Yes, I
perks
don't
on
care."
it?"
Okay,
mean,
moving on.
Similar vein to that, actually, one of the questions I get the most over the years, like if I did a Control F in my YouTube comments, I would probably have over 1,000 comments of this, and it's people in 2026 looking for the best non-degradable gear.
Yes.
Because
People
anything
love
that degrades, people feel bad using it, even though the reality is non-degradable gear is a trap. You're gonna
Mhm.
you're gonna make less money on the non-degradable gear, but the fact that it doesn't degrade is so appealing to people that this is not a skill change. But part of me wonders if, now that we have a GE tax and stuff like that, if there's even a need to have mid-tier gear that degrades to dust the way that it used to.
What's the lowest tier that degrades? Is it Virtus tier 80?
No, Barrows is 70.
Arams, yeah, Amp 70. Might be 70. Do you count Corrupted Dragon? No. I mean,
No.
in theory, but no.
No. If you count Corrupted Dragon, then it's tier 55 for the Barrel Chest Anchor. I think that's tier 55. Maybe
I
it's
don't
not.
know.
Maybe it's higher.
But yeah, I Like, yeah, someone in chat says I find degrading gear weird. I think the issue, okay, I mean, I don't know because obviously I'm not the target audience, but what I'm guessing the issue is that back in the day, tier 90 gear all degrade to dust, and since then, people have had that concept in their heads, and they hate it because I hate it. But I think degrading gear now, I don't think anything like, because it gets a bit tricky with invention, but that whole concept doesn't really exist anymore.
It's
And I'd say
similar to
that's
the
different.
Chronote discussion, where the cost itself isn't the problem, it's the way that it feels.
Yes.
And it also feels kind of bad for degrade to dust gear because there's tier 90 gear that degrades to dust, and then there's tier 95 gear that doesn't degrade at all. And all of the new gear that comes out doesn't degrade at all.
Yeah, like vestments doesn't degrade, I believe.
No, it doesn't.
Like, it's also like odd because if you asked me 10 different pieces of armor whether they grade or not, I would not get most of them correct because I actually have no idea because you just augment everything.
I'd go 10 for 10, but I respect you.
Does Dracolich degrade?
It absolutely does.
Okay, I wouldn't know. That's the thing because you buy it, you augment it, you move on. And I think not to say that's the problem, but I feel like there becomes a bit of a disconnect because in theory, nothing degrades when it's augmented. Well, okay, there are some things, right? But most things don't degrade when they're augmented, but they still have an active cost to use. Which then, like,
Yes.
it's not the same as non-degradable because there's no active cost to use.
I think it's also weird when certain gear you go to the workbench and then you have to like scroll and find it, and in order to re-augment it, you need another new set of it compared to other gear that doesn't have that. But yeah, I mean, if there isn't Ryan, if you don't have anything to add on this or any thoughts, we can just move to another skill, but it's very up to you.
I think Rand's muted, so he's probably
No, I'm here. I'm just
okay.
um,
Observing.
I think in general, like you guys are kind of talking to a lot of the problems that, unpicking some of, we have an awesome 25-year-old game, but things have changed over time, and some people in the chat kind of mention it. Some of our more modern gear doesn't degrade. Our modern boss instances don't charge you. I know that's a different topic, but the instances that charge you the most happen to be mid-tier content for the most part, like God Wars Dungeon, and I can't even think of the others. Like Virago is the most expensive instance I think in the game. It's the sort of content that like we've superseded it and said, Raziel's gear doesn't degrade, but haven't gone back and sort of addressed it as a whole, like looking at the whole game. I think it's a longer conversation, right? But like, what is the purpose of why does the grade exist, or why should it exist? There's probably a time and a place for it, but I do generally agree. Like, ultimately, we want RuneScape to be a fun game to play. You shouldn't feel like there is bad friction constantly. Maybe the grade isn't one of those. Maybe it is, but I think, like we were saying a minute ago, you run into that, and then you run into the relic friction, and then you run into the instance friction, and then you run into friction on top of each other is where it becomes a bigger deal to sort of resolve.
I think my view is that degrading things isn't bad. I think it's just not very clear whether something degrades and then also what it degrades to. And I think that scares people because they don't want to make a wrong purchase decision and then realize they bought something that disappears in 2 hours.
This is sort of a side point. Do y'all remember the thing with the helmets for the tier 92 gear?
Yes, where you
Where
dye them.
Yeah, if you will know,
Yeah.
well, worse, I was too broke for a dye, so I went through, I think, 3 different Elite Tectonic masks where if they broke,
no.
they would just delete themselves. You'd look up at your character and be like, oh, he's just not wearing one anymore. You have to go buy a new one.
Yeah.
Unless you Barrows dyed it. So
This
I
is
have
exactly
a bunch of
why-
Barrows dyed ones. Go ahead.
This is exactly why, if you watch I'm plugging it now, but the latest RuneScape Ahead, I specifically say in there something about I have a thing for making the inventory models the same. So the only reason I have soul dyed Serenic body and legs is because I dyed the helm for the purpose that you mentioned, and I couldn't have a different looking helm compared to the rest, so I had to dye the rest. And yes, that's the sort of thing where, again, it might be easy to say, oh yeah, just dye the helmet. I'll just do this. But like, it comes with significant knowledge of the game. Anyone who does like that just shouldn't be a thing. I think
Yeah.
on paper, it's easy for me to say, and I'm sure someone's like, well, why don't you fix it then? It's a bit more complicated to do in the sense of there are 1,000 things I would love to fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, degradation, degradation,
Yeah.
yeah,
Degradation.
No, you had it.
degradation.
Yeah.
Would be good to address at some point as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
Agree.
Next skill.
Yeah, what do you want?
You should close your eyes and pick one.
Oh, I'm looking at a list of all of them.
Well, that's why I said close your eyes.
Chat, you guys can weigh in as well. If there's one that you really want to get into, we can do that. I'm seeing a lot of people saying divination. I'm seeing some herblore. I'm seeing some summoning.
King.
Any of those intriguing between divvy summoning?
What are your thoughts on div?
Okay, before you start, this is not me talking about div, but just as a general thought for all skills in general.
Yeah.
When we make new skills, it's easier to talk about because we don't necessarily know the purpose of original skills. It's always like, what is this skill going to offer? What is the purpose of this skill? What is the unique, what is the USP for this skill? Like, why should it exist? Now, skills in general, they do share a lot of similarities between each other. Let's just, for argument's sake, fishing, woodcutting, mining. By nature, they are the same skill with different paint. Go and interact with a thing, get fish in the inventory, go and cook it or do something else with it.
Yep.
Woodcutting, trees. That doesn't mean that it's bad to make another skill like that, just as a note. Of course, mining smithing's been reworked since, but let's just assume they was the same on paper at the beginning. Because they have different purposes, different outputs, different thematic, different feelings, different journeys, milestones, etc. But in general, a skill should have a reason to exist, and that reason can be shared. But ultimately, you wouldn't want to make another, for argument's sake, if a new skill came out and you said, "Oh, it's just another divination," you probably failed in terms of design. If people think it's just another version of an original skill, an existing skill. But when you look at these, I'm digging way too deep beyond let's just fix skilling with an idea. But I'm just letting you know, when you look at these skills, it's always interesting to think, what do you think the purpose of that skill is? Why does it exist? What is it offering you? What is the takeaway? USP, unique selling point. Sorry.
You were there
I was
basically
so close.
there,
I was so close.
basically there.
I was so close. Classic me, just taking two really easy words and making them way too long for no reason. But yeah, sorry, continue.
I think it was kind of done. I think a skill's purpose should be, or can be, one of many things. There is no right answer. It can be its purpose for theme. It can be purpose for reward output. It can be purposeful in the way that it's trained. I probably would never say, like, we want to make this skill, and the reason we want to make it is because we want to make something super active. I think all skills on paper can have active and AFK methods. Doesn't mean all skills should. I think that's another point, but they all could, right? Like we could always have every skill is AFKable, or it's got really lead forward methods. But yeah, just to give you some. That's, by the way, sorry, that's not on new skills. It's on skills in general, Ryan. I'm just saying that when we look at new skills, we obviously think about these in practice. We can't necessarily go back and fully understand. I mean, maybe I could go ask Andrew, but like why fire making is. What was fire making's purpose? I imagine fire making's purpose was it's just cool. It's a fantasy medieval game. Like why not? Which is completely fair as well. For its time, it made perfect sense. I think in the modern day, people look at those sorts of skills and say, "What's the point of it?" But come on, 99 fire making was my second 99. I loved it. There's all reasons why these things have value.
Fun,
Yeah.
just a bit chill.
Surely fire making, you've got wood cutting, you've got all these logs, you need something to do with them.
Yeah,
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we were. I'd say game design has come a long way in 25 years. That yeah, what passed as a skill 10 years ago wouldn't pass today, sort of thing.
Understood.
I think that also, like, if you look at archaeology as a skill, whether you love it or you hate it, there's a lot more depth to, the thematics of that skill are a lot deeper than chop tree, burn log. But with that said, speaking of skills, do we want to go to divination station or do we want to go to summoning circle?
That begins with C.
I know, and then station starts with an S. It should have been summoning station or divination destination.
Pick which one you want. Honestly, just pick one, and then we'll do the other one afterwards. Baller.
All right. I would like to do divination.
Okay.
I have strong thoughts on divination.
I have some
Interestingly.
hot takes on divination, but you can go
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Do you? Oh,
Wait.
yep.
What is the purpose of divination? That's my question to you guys.
Make shit.
No, it's to slurp up Guthix's leaking energy, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the. Well, I won't. That is a narrative interpretation of what it is, but I'm more referencing what does divination offer to the game, or what do you think it set out to offer? I think, and
Make shit.
then it's okay.
That is a great leading question. To me, the thing that divination needs to do more of and lean into, and its purpose, is transmutation. The idea of turning a thing into a different thing. That would be my interpretation of what divination's purpose is / should be.
Yeah, it does have a lot of transmutation aspects. I think more than people think. They're just all of the previously added ones are not balanced at all. I quite like the making porters, making portent, that type of thing, because it is just you're turning energy into useful items.
Here's a
I think
question.
it could lean more into transmutation.
Was that a leading question that has an answer?
Not exactly. But divination's an interesting skill for you to pick because of recent skills. It is let's say, the last skill that, if we go back a number of iterations, that people would probably say, what's the word? Like if you go back in the skills, there are plenty of people that say, "Oh, necromancy is an awesome skill, archaeology is an awesome skill, invention, it's great," but then when they hit divination, it's like the most recent skill that people would point out. It didn't feel as great as the more modern skills, if that makes sense. It's the last modern skill that doesn't feel like a modern skill. We learned a lot from that, but divination, I would say, on paper, is more of a traditional original skill, whereby it had a very simple core loop of which you repeated at different levels, e.g. cut tree, cut better tree. It was put memories in, get better memories, put memories in. And then its output was essentially just what it produced. So it was, by nature, a simple skill. And I think that it definitely was originally designed with the purpose of invention existing. I don't know if many people remember the backstory of divination was actually so long ago, like 12 years. No, it was it? Yeah, I think it actually was.
Is it more?
I think it was more than that. I
think
want to
it's
say
more.
more than that because I was definitely
Divination.
in like,
2013.
the 8th grade.
13 years.
Yeah.
13
Okay,
years.
13 years. Okay, damn. I QA'd divination, fun fact. I just started at Jagex. Anyway, sorry, that's not the story I was going to tell. What was I going to tell? Divination. Oh yes. So the tiny bit backstory. It was always designed with the idea of being a duo skill, like a paired skill, right? Which is quite traditional of original skills as well. Mining, smithing, fishing, cooking. You could argue fire making in there. Sorry, wood cutting, fletching. You could argue fire making in there. Anyway, so it was always designed with invention, but there was a time where I believe in I want to call it, what was it? The rune polls? What was it? Player power.
It was Rune
power
Labs.
Player rune labs. Yeah, there was a time where we said, "Do you want invention or Elf City?" And I think Elf City won the poll, so then invention got pushed back as well. So there is a world where divination had a second part that didn't come for a while. Let's say, so divination lent a lot into its entire reward output, which PUP mentioned a few things, right, with transmutation, porters, portents, divine locations, etc., etc., which is full of interesting items, but the skill by definition is kind of defined by those items as well now. We do div because we need energy for invention, or we do div because we want sign of life. Assume that you don't have the defense cape stuff, but anyway, I'm rambling. I'm just trying to give you some things that people wouldn't know, or just random info that is maybe useful or interesting. I don't know.
Definitely very interesting.
I didn't know either of those, and I am
No.
deeply intrigued.
Yeah, because obviously comparing divination to the three more recent skills, it does feel significantly different. It does feel like one of those simpler, like, gather resources, make simple things kind of skill, which isn't necessarily bad, but it kind of does stick out more than Invention Arc Necro. Um, and then kind of learning that, like, it was intended originally to be a two-part with Invention kind of makes a little bit more sense with that. I'm guessing now they're probably slightly more disconnected than maybe the original design plan. Just because of the whole, it's you get energy and then you use it, and there's not too much more than that, even though energy is so core to Invention. Personally, like, if you ignore Invention for a sec, pretend it doesn't exist, but obviously pretend that energy has, the Invention use, I'm totally fine with divination in terms of what it produces. I think it's not a lot of items, and I think that's sometimes just okay. I think what I do take issue with is training divination for the sole purpose of it's locked behind one item.
Is
And
it
I
the
think
dowser?
that's the problem. It's the dowser. And it's not that the dowser is good. Like, obviously it's good. It's not really that. It's that it changes how you train the skill quite a lot. And I think that's the problem with it. I think having an item that massively increases your XP an hour is fine. I think having an item that significantly changes how you train the skill, I don't really like.
For the maybe I'm breaking the rules, but for the sake of the conversation, let's assume Dowser doesn't exist. And I say that purely because you said it's locked behind that. Now that is a high level item
It's a
that
high
the
level
majority of
argument,
players are
yes.
not buying, right? It's like
That's
500,
valid.
600, 700 mil. I'm not entirely. It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
I do agree with you. It is as a skilling offhand, it is the most impactful offhand that we've made, right? Like to your point,
By
it fundamentally
far.
changes the way
Yes.
the skill was trained because you no longer go to the crater, right? Before it was gather, deposit. Even with things like the archaeology relic that took over the divination cache because you still had to go and deposit it, right? So it changed the skill. So yeah, the only reason I say ignore it for a moment, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on the skills. To be honest, we've changed this conversation from make a
Yeah.
small change to let's just talk about skills, which is
That's
probably
okay.
That's
maybe not the
fine.
thing.
Yeah. I
But
think
yeah, it muddies
assu-
the waters with it existing in conversation, I think. So I'd be interested to know what you think about it.
yeah, assuming it doesn't exist, I think it makes the skill something I would enjoy more because it doesn't have that kind of big change point. It does become, I mean, it's always, even with the dowser, it is very dull to train. Uh, I've never been a big fan of training archaeology, and I think Div is the same, but even more boring. Like, I think it's probably, to me, the most boring skill to train. Um, I don't know why, just never been a big fan of it. Um, but it doesn't need an active thing. Like, I don't think every skill needs something active. I think it being AFK is okay. But I think maybe a slight bit more variety would be, you know, something I would like. I do like the kind of Hall of Memories thing. I do like caches. Obviously, there's the whole issues with caches aren't daily anymore. You kind of just roll up, don't you?
Yeah,
I
so
don't
it's
know.
every time you do 600 resources deposited, you can enter the cache and you can go in whenever you want.
Got you. Yes, I very much like caches. I think at the core, it's a little too dull to train, but I would say that if I had to pick one change, assuming Dowser does exist,
Yep.
I think divination is in a good enough spot for me, where the only thing I would say is just make the Dowser less impactful, honestly, which sounds weird, but I think that would be what my thing is. I think it changes the skill too much.
I mean,
That could either be removing some of what the Dowser does, or adding some of what it does to the core skill, which is probably the more preferable option.
I'm writing that one because otherwise you're gonna get blasted by chat.
Yes,
But
but
also,
I
like,
think
yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think part of the difference with Divi is it feels bad until you have a dowser because you know if you get a dowser first, it's 10 times better or whatever. I think that's part of it. Also, Ryan, you can just ask the question.
What did he ask?
He's asked a question in chat.
What is the difference in feel between training divination versus woodcutting versus fishing?
I was asking everyone because I was just curious because
Well,
it
they can
is
all hear us.
Yeah, but I'm asking them. I guess unless you mean me to put. Yeah. Anyway, the reason I ask is because it is just a very interesting design philosophy. I think in the same sense of, again, I'm going slightly off topic, but it's useful. For years, people would talk about how amazing Telos is, and
Hmm.
I'm not disagreeing with them. But Telos was the money printer. If you
Yes.
took away the money printer part, is that the same? Do people still say the same thing? Right, like, and it's that sort of like sometimes when people say, "Oh, this skill is amazing because of X," they're like, we have to understand more. What is it that they're actually feeling, and is it actually the reason they believe it to be? So when I say things like, if you take these skills, right, fishing, what did I say? Fishing,
Fishing, wood
wood
cutting.
cutting, and divination. By nature, they are all gather, fill your inventory, and then get rid of inventory.
Hmm.
Divinations is get rid of it nearby. The others are go to bank and get rid of it. But fundamentally, they are very similar. I know there are differences, but some people would say things like, "Damn, I hate woodcutting," or "I really like, I despise fishing," or to your point, "I don't like divination." I think runecrafting was kind of the same sense when RuneSpan came out. RuneSpan was very much gather a thing, and you just never bank, right? Like, I'm oversimplifying, I know, but there are very different perceptions of skills based on the theme, based on what it is you're doing, based on where you are in the world as well, right? Like, just as an example, if we put you in a dark cave and made you trade a
Huh?
skill, like, is it as sorry, whoa, Jesus.
I don't like this.
In RuneScape, like, we send you into a dark cave and it's really dark lighting, there's nothing interesting going on, and we ask you to train there. Is it as exciting as being in the middle of Elf City training the exact same skill, right? Like, you got bright lights, crystal
Hmm.
around you, and I think that it is the fantasy of fishing at the top of a waterfall. People love the fantasy of fishing wobbegongs on an uncharted island. Feels pretty cool. We go and make you fish cave eel or something in the middle of Lumbridge Swamp. I doubt it probably, even if it was the best XP in the game, feeling is everything with game design. So yeah, sorry.
Yes.
The thing I'm trying to get at is sometimes it's not actually divination. I'm just making a statement as a sort of point. Divination is bad. It might actually be it just doesn't feel good where all the locations are. The creator doesn't feel that
I think
interesting. It could just be on that as well.
now that you mention that, I definitely 100% agree. They're all just in random patches of grass with nothing really around them. I think, like, if you ask me to go train woodcutting, chopping willow trees at Draenor, I'm having a banging time. It's very fun. But if I'm training divination in Karamja Forest, it's probably exactly the same gameplay, but it's just not. It's just not it, you know. And I feel
Yeah,
like the location does have more of an impact now that you kind of mentioned it that maybe I didn't really think
I,
about.
I think that's
it
the
is
separator between Div and archaeology. The gameplay isn't that different between the two, but Arc, you're in
Yeah,
these
exactly
beautiful dig sites.
you're exploring all these really cool areas. Yeah.
the power fantasy, exactly. And I think that's why, to some degree, when people may say Hall of Memories, to your point, is fun, and even when they do core, the core parties, they hop worlds, etc. The mechanic is just click the middle, but it feels cool. The community, you're in like an ancient sort of cavern based on the Cresbots, etc., the automatons, and it has a more sort of feeling to it. And I think that is something to not like basically is probably underrated or not necessarily thought about enough, which is why I think fantasy skills like taking medieval skills like your mining, your fishing, woodcutting, they are cool to do even if they sound monotonous and mundane, because it is quite cool to be in some of these locations across the world. When you get into the fantasy of some of our later skills, e.g., archaeology, I'll throw summoning for a moment, summoning and divination, you kind of need to make them feel as fantastical as they are. If archaeology was just digging, absolutely would be awful, right? But when it is, to your point, you're in the Warforge or you're up in the sky and you're flying a wingsuit and uncovering artifacts and going to a mysterious monolith, all of that makes archaeology feel better by
Hmm.
nature.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, back to Div.
No, it's really interesting you bring that up because my favorite era of training divination was way back in the day when it was cursed energy at the Sword of Edicts in the wilderness. And I think the reason I like training Div there, but not anywhere else, is probably the location and the vibes. I liked being in the Wildy. I liked
Good vibes.
the look of the energy. Like it definitely makes a big difference. Although I will say, I don't think those are the only differences between Div and some of the other traditional gathering skills. Like I'll give an example for woodcutting. On one hand, I love training woodcutting because golden bamboo on the arc is awesome. It's really chill. The location is really nice. Like it feels satisfying to train. But also, woodcutting, there are 8 different methods that are all pretty good XP of different varying levels of AFK with differing varying levels of resource as well in terms of output. Whereas for Divi, I think one of the reasons people get bored of it is it's always just go to the highest spot you can and stay there until you can get to the next spot. And I do think if woodcutting only had the core trees, it would be held in a much lower regard than it is.
You don't want to chop willows at Draenor?
I do, but I don't want to do that
Yes,
from level.
I very much agree with you. I think the hopping around more between different areas is nice. I think the whole thing with Div is like it's very linear. It's every 10 levels. There's kind of no. I mean, you can make it every 5 levels. It would be more exciting. You know what I mean? Like it's very. Go to the spot. You have 10 levels. Go to the spot. You have 10 levels, and they are just. Every spot's exactly the same. It's probably not an interesting location. The rift looks exactly the same. The energy looks the same. It's just a different color. Like it kind of feels like everything's the same. And I know that like trees, you know, they're all kind of the same thing, but it feels more different when you have trees in different areas and there's more of them and things.
I mean, just I'm oversimplifying just because there's a lot to you could talk about. But just comparing your example there of trees versus divination, yes, the memories are different, but they are like the fountains are just color shift. Actually, in fact, the fountains weren't even originally color shifted, if I remember correctly. It was just the energy. That was a ninja fix that came later on, which changed them or made them more obvious. I'm trying to remember the difference, but ultimately, early on, it is still the same looking crater. When you use your tree example, trees get more magnificent, you know, as they go up, or they feel more rare, right? They're literally rare trees, as
they
you
are,
know, on the mini-map.
Physically,
So it feels more impactful. The same thing for when you're mining ores, right? You go from tin and copper to nowadays like not Dracolite. I can't even name.
No one knows the names. They're all made up.
I know what they look like, but you know,
whatever.
or you get to all the primal related, the dungeoneering related metals. You already have a fantasy behind it. I think in general, divination is just different words and different colors for the most part. Again, that's not to downplay it. I actually quite enjoyed Div on release because it was a traditional RuneScape skill, and that's what everyone like at the time. Like I really wanted another one of those. And I think to your point on like Hall of Memories, etc. Nowadays, I think divination is in a much better spot today than it was years ago. Ignoring Dowser for a moment, in the sense that once upon a time, divination was very. I don't know if anyone in the chat will probably can agree with this. It was very. It is not AFK, but it is not active. You never like it sat in that really middle ground where you couldn't look away from the screen, and you equally, if you paid attention, it didn't feel like there was much to it. So once we added the fountains were longer, there is visible like like progress bar about how long till the fountain goes away. At least you know if I look away from the screen for the next 1 minute, I'm fine. I think that changed a lot about divination at its core. But anyway, we still haven't added our divination points.
Well, I've added mine. I don't see any changes from the other boys.
Wait, I put mine on the board, I think. I put mine on the board before we even started talking about it. But no, just to kind of finish that thought, I'm looking at the images of all of the divination rifts, and it literally is just green rift on grass, green rift on grass, green rift on grass, and all but one of them are green rift on grass, and then there's one that's green rift in Frenesque, which is cool as heck. Love that. Feels good. And then there's green rift on sand at level 90.
Oh.
Ooh. I don't know. I'm just putting it out here. This is not my divination change, but you take the glowing wisp location. No. You take the bright wisp location from next to the art guild where it's kind of just like shoved in there. All right. And you yeet it in Amberfell. Divination
Do it.
fixed. I actually do think it would be
think-
a better spot there, but anyway.
So going back to Mod Ryan's point about rareness, like whenever you're roaming around the lands, right, you see lots of normal trees and some oak trees, and then a couple of the like the rarer trees, and it's kind of the same with fishing as well. Whereas Div, there's only one level 1 spot. There's only one level 20 spot. It doesn't actually become progressively rarer. It's just everything is the same rareness in theory, which I think feels odd too. Like it's not like, oh, I'm going to train Div at level 20. I can go to a plethora. See, that's now a word. A plethora of spots. I can, it's, oh, I'm going to this one area, which maybe makes it feel kind of more dull because you're not training it where you kind of feel like it.
I think that's valid. Pup, do you want to take us through your divination change? I think you kind of already did, but...
Yes, my divination change is that some of the core aspects of the dowser change the skill too much, and they should be tied to the skill at a core level, and then it might make the actual active training, well, not active training, but the training of divination a little bit nicer. And then when you get the dowser, if you get the dowser, if you're the lucky person to get one, it won't drastically change how you interact with the skill, and you'll still feel like you can train the skill before you get the dowser, which you're not going to get anyway because the draw rates are awful.
Sorry, I saw Ryan unmute, so I wasn't sure if he had something to say, so I didn't say anything.
Oh, did I unmute? I've been unmuted. No. I have my suggestion as well.
Yeah, let's take it.
Just a bit different. I think that divination would benefit from a bit more of that mix-up of the triangles that we often refer to nowadays of, AFK versus reward output for GPXP. I think it could benefit from a variety there. So at the moment, everything is done in the same place. I think we could have more methods for energy gathering, like very specifically focus on energy gathering, so it's not the way it's currently done, because that's also the way you currently do XP if you're not doing like Hall of Memories. I think we could benefit from like a super lean forward divination training method, or equally the opposite, a super laid back AFK training method that isn't to the point that Pup mentioned requires a 700 mil item. I don't know what level bands, but I just think that it's one of those skills that it's got some quite niceties in that I do like cache and Hall of Memories for the purpose of the way cache is now, especially. It is quite literally a distraction diversion, the same way like the pit is for agility courses, right? You are training Div and then it's like, okay, it's open, jump in, do some like bit of mixed up gameplay. And then the Hall of Memories is just a different angle in a certain level bracket that has value, or if you want to do the community stuff with the core memories, which I think it's kind of akin to safes for me. Not to go into thieving too much, but safes has its sort of pocket of useful time period in which you engage with and then maybe move off to go do something else like heists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, as a player, I would enjoy that. I think it kind of, it really does feel like woodcutting if woodcutting had one of each tree and they're all in one spot. Whereas, if you moved some different, if there were different places to do different things with Divi, I think it would feel a lot better. Like, one of my gripes at Divi is the right-click configure on the rift. I would much rather there were different rifts for the different things, as opposed to you just right-click and go through the menu and configure the rift to do what you want it to do. So that feels like it sort of satisfies that.
Agree with that one.
Okay. My change for Divi is, I think, as I said, to me, the purpose of Divi, transmutation is really cool. I think if you look at the recent Old School League, that was a good proof of concept that, like, the idea of transmutation is exciting and it feels very magical and MMO-y. And if you look at the menu for transmutation for Divi, I'd say like probably 98% of it is completely useless, just in terms of the way that it's balanced, where you would never actually, in your gameplay, transmute anything into anything unless it's a tier 95 weapon piece. So I would basically QOL transmutation so that it's not just a... Like, I think as a new player, I'm imagining discovering that you can use divination to transmute, getting really excited, and then looking at the chart of what turns into what and going, oh, this is completely useless, and then being sad. Whereas to me, it's mostly a numbers thing, but I would love it if transmuting was actually a viable, useful thing to do. I would love it if, like, you're trying to do Fremenic trials, you need a shark or you need a magic log for desert treasure. And it's actually a viable method of getting those resources would be getting the thing under or a couple tiers under and then transmuting all the way up to the thing that you need. So that is my my divination change.
Big. Are we getting some votes?
Someone mentioned it's 97 divination to turn an onyx dust into an onyx. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
It
a
should
lot,
not be
yeah.
nearly that high because that would be a great way to get your first onyx if it wasn't just way too high. But yeah, we can
Yeah, I
we
think
can
the
let
thing
chat
with,
get their votes
with
in as well.
transmutation is generally the aim to transmutate something in the first place is because you don't have it, because you are too low level or too unskilled to have the item. So it then being locked behind slightly high resources and slightly high level is kind of defeats, I think, the main core point of transmutation.
Yeah, like by the time you're 97 divi, you have 300 onyxes probably. But yeah, okay, we can do a quick little poll speed run here. So first off, pups, make Dowser less impactful and add benefits to core skill. Chat, get your votes in. Is this a pass or is it a fail? Is this coming out on Monday or is it not coming out at all? Ooh, see, this one's tough because people don't want their Dowser to lose its juice,
Better
right?
votes on
Let's
mine.
say we
People-
can see how many people have DAOs and how many people don't,
Yeah.
just based on
I
this.
sure as hell don't because I mean this is a side discussion, but maybe next week we can do one change to every boss. Oh my god, the gate drop rates. They make me want to
So-
quit the game and never play again.
Funnily enough, I thought I'd give a constructive advice, but my actual one change to divination, because I think divination at the core is generally decent, was just going to be make the Dowser more common, which doesn't even change the skill. But I was like, that should just be it. But obviously, if
It
you
still
don't need the
wouldn't
Dowser
pass
as
though
much,
because the people with the Dowsers would still vote no to that.
yeah,
but
66%, we didn't
it
win.
was close. It was close.
For the Dowser thing here, though, right? No, again, this is just some insight, I guess, behind the curtain. Let's say is there are sometimes I'm not saying that data is, but that data could be based on Dowser is great. I love Dowser. I use Dowser, but it is somewhat I don't want to say gatekeeping, but it's kind of to the point of it's so fundamentally important to training divination or changes it so much that it becomes one of these. It's not even like nice quality of life. It's like, yeah, this is just absolutely trumps many things. I think that's a good example whereby it kind of sits in the similar realms that old Greater Ricochet used to, which is like Ricochet and Greater Ricochet were so different fundamentally that it was a giant cost, a giant thing to buy. And obviously everyone would say, well, don't change it because it's great and it's worth loads of money, which again it is, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not a good, doesn't mean it's the reason not to change it. I think I would vote for Pup's idea, but with a lot of finesse for what it's worth. Like
It's tough
I
to
think,
balance in the real
yeah.
world. But yeah.
I fully agree with that for what it's worth. I mean, it's sort of the same idea as if you pulled cluers and clue chasers on getting rid of the clue outfit, because that's sort of a similar deal where it's very prohibitive to get for people and it keeps the community very small. I think
It's
cluers
awful.
and the clue chasers would vote to not get rid of the clue outfit, but in reality, it'd probably be better for the future of people doing clue scrolls if you did that.
Yeah,
But I
there would
think-
definitely be
yeah.
some people that would vote no because then more people do clues and then their dies are worth less, kind of thing.
I mean, in general, making clues viable for everyone would be awesome. But then, yes, let's assume that the fortunate price and every, items are generally going to be cheaper, right?
Yep. And yeah, for me, I would argue that's not a bad thing, but for people that are already doing it, makes sense. All right, next one. 90% of transmutation is useless. Lean into transmuting resources into different tiers and making it worth it. Chad, what do we think? Am I cooking or...
I think you're cooking.
Oh,
Easy.
whoa, we're cooking.
Easy dub.
Wait,
Haven't seen a single two.
100%? All right, for
End the
audio
poll now. Just take it.
podcast listeners, we have a 97.9%, 98% yes, on making transmuting a useful / viable thing. I'm truly astounded, and everybody that voted yes, you will be getting your free subscription. I'll just sort those out after the stream.
Oh, I should have voted yes then.
Yeah, you were the one no vote. All right, and Ryan, I'm gonna do yours as well, for fun. So it's divination could use a GP, XP, AFK triangle mix-up. Chat, if you're not familiar with the triangle, it was used describing thieving and pickpocketing and heists, and it basically states that there are like the corners are the like level of each of the things, and nothing should be too far on all of them, and you can balance it by leaning towards halfway or leaning towards one of the things and not all of them at the same time. And on top of that, more methods to gather energy specifically, and super active divination and super AFK training that doesn't require Dowser. I have a feeling I know how this one's going to go, but... Get your votes in. Can I just say, I'm truly shocked that...
What are you shocked
the
about,
person whose job it is to direct design in RuneScape has good ideas about designing things in RuneScape.
It's a bit surprising.
It's very weird to me, to be honest. Oh, and of course, he gets a 98.1%. Trumping me by 0.1, yep.
Disgraceful.
I'll take it. 51-1, that's a good record. Good work.
Up, were you the one that voted no?
I wasn't, no.
No, he voted
yes.
yes. I saw. He didn't vote yes on mine, though.
I actually did. I just wanted to tell. Do you want me to tell you the name of who voted no so you can ban them?
Yes,
We
please.
have one no vote. Sir Prince Pumpernickel. Get him out of here.
I agree. No, you can stay. It's okay. Differing opinions are good sometimes. Okay.
I love differing opinions. It's my job to listen to all angles of the world.
Yeah, I guess that's
and
got to be a hard part of the job.
Yeah,
but
I think
also,
me and Mod Sponge have very differing opinions on mostly everything.
I want to do a podcast where it's just you and Sponge. Just get, like, not like in a bad way, but like I think you both like discussing stuff with each other, but you genuinely don't see eye to eye on anything. I've never met two people that disagree on more things, so it's always a good time.
I think it's interesting because we're like that, but we're also opinionated and happy to say we think something's bad. I feel like we're both quite not necessarily stubborn in that sense, but we'll say what we think, you know, kind of thing. I feel like Sponge is kind of very much like that.
That's a good spot to be. So also, so my editor Nathan is a huge farming enjoyer, and I scroll down on the Miro board and I see he's added perfect how it is to farming. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it. So in terms of skills, how do we feel about jumping to summoning? That was the one that chat wanted. Or
I think we should do summoning.
I'm gonna open a possible rabbit hole here that
a combat skill
we can jump to as well, which is we've got Ryan here. It could also be interesting to talk about necromancy.
Oh, I love necromancy. It's so good.
But chat, I want to know what you guys think. Feel free to weigh in. We could also go somewhere else entirely. All right, I'm seeing summoning.
All right. Summoning.
All right.
And then go from there.
Summoning it is. Okay, so I let off the last one. Either Pup or Ryan, take it away. How do we feel about summoning?
Okay. I think there are kind of two parts of it. I think it's the training part and then the output part. It's kind of one of those standard skills where you make stuff and then you use stuff. I think all the familiars need a massive overhaul. And I'd say most of that is just removing the 95% of familiars that have no use. I think adding new familiars that were they don't have to be best in slot. I think you can have lower versions of familiars that are easier to obtain. Like imagine I know Hellhound is quite low level already, but imagine a lower level Hellhound that was just worse, but
it's just a hound.
Yeah, like or you know, like you have a lot of lower level DPS familiars, which is quite nice, just because they existed before with some of the lower level Titans. But I think when you actually come to make them, you realize that it's just rubbish. So I think my beef with that is that there are a lot of familiars that are tough to make, given just how the gameplay is now, and not that useful. And I think removing all of those would be really good, but then filling up that space with lower level versions of things that are still useful, but obviously not the best item. Uh, and then I think there's the training of it. I think charms are perfectly fine. I have no issue with those. I think getting most of the ingredients, obviously, it depends massively on what you're making, but I think generally the ingredient space is okay. Uh, I have my main issue with the training is physically just the training. Um, I think the whole concept of going and selling items to a shop so that you then don't have to bank is a little odd. Um, I think the training is it's an interesting one where it's insanely fast, but obviously part of that actual training time is gathering the items with the charms and the items if you're an iron, which I'm like again I said I'm happy with. I just think the actual act of making them isn't that fun. Um, and I know they obviously tried something different with the Havenhearth summoning. Um, and I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I would imagine most people are on the same vein as me of the no one cares and we just do normal summoning. That's kind of I'm assuming what the play is.
I think as
Um,
an endgame player, you end up with more charms than you'll ever need, so it's always more efficient to just do the regular sell to the shop summoning. But I would imagine on a lower leveled account, the Havenite summoning is actually pretty good, but I am
that's good then.
unsure.
Like, well, yeah, because I'm not in the position to kind of know that, I guess, but Um, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the way it's trained. I don't think just chilling at a obelisk is necessarily bad, but what it actually comes down to is just banking or obtaining the new inventive items, and I think that's kind of more the core issue. Like, do I want to go to Prif and just run really fast, or do I want to go to Tavily and sell the stuff? That's kind of just the options, and I feel like actually training the skill, all it revolves around on is how am I going to bank for my new stuff, and I don't really think that's great.
I would say that it's a very interesting topic because to list or to talk to some of the points you mentioned, this is not me changing anything yet, but just to talk to some points, is summoning has aged very. Uh, I I would say that from a design perspective, summoning hasn't aged well, and I say that because charm rates are through the roof compared to what they once were.
Hmm.
Gold is much higher than it once was. So the idea of buying resources, sorry, selling resources to the shop and buying them back, that was once upon a time the absolute top efficiency method that barely anyone would actually do. It
Yeah.
was not the BAU method. And I'm not saying it's still a BAU method, but the way in which it's discussed now is, I don't know, double XP, you should do this. Or equally, people would add deposit boxes, portable deposit boxes, right? And if people didn't want to, they might turn them into scrolls as well. Like, there are other options that people would do if they didn't want to sell the pouches. But ultimately, that was always once upon a time a completely different method that was only for the elite. And equally, you just didn't have the amount of charms you had. You were running more greens and red charms. Sorry, I don't know why I'm calling them by color, but versus using blue. I mean, to be fair, we could talk about the naming of charms, but anyway. So summoning's in a position like that. I actually don't have anything against summoning the way that it was originally trained. And I say this in the sense of what I was saying earlier. Skills can be different. I think that some people would say, they were saying in the chat, like, why is it that summoning is trained via creating pouches rather than summoning creatures? That's like you could call it pouch creation skill rather than summoning. It's the same way you could call runecrafting magic, in the same way that it is in comparatively the way summoning is. You could have called runecrafting magic, right? I think it's fine. It's different. I think that's the nice thing. Summoning training is different. I think if different methods is cool. But anyway, the charm rate being so high is kind of interesting. I'm not a big fan of that. I think once upon a time you used to have to go out your way to grind charms, or you take certain
Yep.
Slayer tasks for specific charms. Getting 99 or let's say 200 mil, 120 summoning was something you had to work towards. I'd say nowadays you're kind of in a position whereby um, um, you just have them, right? To be honest, you play the rest of the game and you end up just having an abundance of charms. I generally agree with your point on summoning familiars, though, which is if you look at the ancient familiars, I would say they're all viable except one. all used except one, I'd say.
What's the one
One that
that
doesn't
isn't
get used,
used?
Abbey Demon, probably.
I didn't know
Um,
that existed.
but
It's a
otherwise,
PvP
Hellhound,
one.
yeah.
Okay, I
So
see.
so it's niche, but ultimately the ancient familiars are a success from archaeology's perspective, right? Because Hellhound has its use cases, Waterfiend has its use cases, Blood Reaver, Gargoyle, Calgarian Demon, Repidem. They all have their own uses. Original Summoning did originally have that. Tortoise to Yak to Steel Titan, Iron Titan,
Yep.
I'm say Abyss Titan. It did have them. It's just aged. Some of them aren't as useful anymore. I think if we were to go back through and look at them all, I think sunk cost be aware of is like I don't think it makes sense to just rework them all to be useful. I think cutting some of them out would be perfectly viable because the same
Hmm.
way in which you level past things very quickly, what's the point in trying to make useful things across the board? But I think generally summoning should have a useful. If we use ancient summoning as example, a useful. I'm just going to oversimplify it. A useful tank familiar across the level bands, a useful DPS familiar across the level bands, a useful skilling ones across the band. The abyssal, the one that carries S. Got upgraded over time, right? I don't know the order, but like leech to. There's like three of them, right? There that can hold S. They will increase in size.
Yeah.
I think that generally would be the way that summoning is progressive, and it's obviously absolutely fine to never go back and use a war tortoise again once you're past it. But
Hmm.
BOB, Yak, building towards Yak. People used to use tortoise back in the day all the time, and then Yak, of course, and then Mammoth became a thing. Obviously, I think Mammoth is unnecessary, right? For the most part, people just use a Yak. But
Yeah, yeah. I think there is definitely a bit of confusion with how many familiars there are. Personally, I think you could remove a lot, and that would be okay. Because I feel like when everyone's like, "Hi, what familiar do I use?" It's kind of everyone's giving the same kind of 5, 6 answers. Quickly touching on dungeoneering, no one ever does dungeoneering summoning because why would you? But what I quite like about that is that you have like a melee DPS familiar, for example, and it has a tier for every. Like it has a tier 1 familiar, a tier 10, all the way up to tier 90. And I'm not saying you would ever need that many tiers, but I quite like that there is just a worse version of a familiar that you can use at whatever level you are.
I mean, that's kind of just like a Beast of Burden, right? Where there's a
Yes,
low
yeah, I
level, there's
wish
the
there
bull
was
ant at level
kind
20
of.
something, and then,
I
yeah.
wish there was that, but for more types of familiars, I think.
I completely agree. And in terms of summoning, I actually really like the way summoning is trained. I like that it's different from all the other skills. Like that's actually one of my favorite things about it is it feels so unique to just gather all your charms and then you kind of just blast when it's time. But
Hmm.
yeah, kind of the same issue is I think basically every non-binding contract is terrible except for the pack yak and the talon beast. And then the beast of burdens when you're lower level and you're leveling up. And I think it just feels bad that most of the pouches you make them just to train and then you destroy them again. And it would be a lot different if they actually, could at least have a tangible benefit. And I think there are so many existing effects that are good and would be perfect as summons. I even think you could expand summoning into a point where like a certain familiar that you summon up gives you access to a different ability and it's on your bar and it's a non-GCD ability where you tell it to spec but it's something that's actually like, impactful and it does something. But that
Hmm.
aside, I would make I would delete like 30% of the existing familiars and then I'd rework another 30% to make basically lesser versions of all the binding contract familiars at lower level bands. I also think it's kind of weird that the best DPS familiar until Steel Titan and Ripper Demon is the Talon Beast at level 77, just because it happens to do a lot of damage, and all of the higher level ones are worse.
Yeah, all the higher level titans are worse just because of the way it's balanced.
Yep.
Yeah, I
um,
think it goes back to that thing of unless you physically do the maths on what is good and what is not, everything is just a little confusing.
yeah, like I'll add 2 points, which is I wouldn't say easy to fix, but I think that with the abundance of charms now, and if you even just go to wiki right now and look at any form of calculator for summoning, using gold charms and green charms is just really not viable. Like
Hmm.
I can't remember if it's the shard rate that it uses or the XP per charm is just really bad. There's something that basically people just say I'll just get crims and blues, which to be honest you can just grind so easy. I'd much rather make golds and greens whatever the solution is, viable to use so that at low levels it makes sense, or theoretically, just get rid of them and swap them over to crims. I don't suggest doing that. It makes no sense to, but like normalizing it, because again, it's like end game summoning is fine. Early game summoning is kind of not fine. I don't know what the Iron Man guide is these days. Is it still doing something like bag plants and
I think so.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Kiffin
all
from one of the shop
it's
and
the
stuff?
jellies from jugs of water, and then it's the
Oh, yeah.
pyrophines from tinder boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because the infinite stores.
Yeah.
Here's a quick question from Mod Ryan. What if you just had a charm and there was no 4 colors?
This is a great design question because this comes up a lot, which is like, I'm just gonna throw it to a different one. What if a boss just dropped one item and you get to choose your drop? It's like everything could be simplified, but then it's like where does it loses some element of the, like we were talking about earlier, with the feel, the fun, etc. Because we could say, why is divination not one crater?
Mhm.
Yeah, I know I'm oversimplifying, but it's complicated, and I'd say that it could work, but there is a world where charms have more exciting factor of like blues. I'm just, for example, come from high level content. So when you kill high level content, you get this high level valuable item that is more useful to make high level or more valuable creatures. If it's just omni charms, it feels nicer for quality of life, but the feel good factor probably doesn't exist as much. That's probably my simple thing to your point.
Yeah, so that was an open-ended question because I very much like the 4 different colors and that they have very different uses and different values. I really like the kind of theory crafting of, I'm going to save these charms and use them later when I'm at a higher level. I really like that part of the skill personally. Obviously, it kind of leads into the meta of you do this and then you do this and then you do this, but like, I quite like that.
Yeah. Just because we could talk about every skill for an infinite amount of time. The one other thing I would actually generally consider changing is how summoning points work. Sounds simple in practice because like when I say summoning points, I mean both the,
You
how,
mean
oh, I
spec
can't
points
summon a
or summoning?
second, both. Because
Uh-huh.
I think the first one, like prayer points, summoning points, to be honest, I don't know how many people in the chat even know what they do. But ultimately, you need an amount to summon a pouch, and then you try to summon another pouch, you don't have enough, so you just drink a restore or
Yeah.
PVM. Like, it's basically irrelevant in the modern day that I think that they could just go away. You can just summon a pouch. And then I think the special, I wouldn't say it needs to change massively, but I do think making it, modernizing it would be good to understand the different costs, and you have a bar and how often does it restore, and this PVM of like I'm gonna spam potions to restore summoning points to spam special. It's a bit like not intended and could be cleaned up to be a bit more, let's say, fun. I think there is a world where, I'm not saying this is the right option, but special attacks are like they have a cooldown. There is no like spamming them. There are reasons to use them. It's kind of the same thing with weapon specials, right? Specials with cooldowns are generally better than specs without.
Hmm.
I say better in the sense of better because you have to think about when to use them,
Yeah.
situation, etc., etc.
More interesting to
I'd
use in your
love to
gameplay
have something
rather
that,
than just spamming your
yeah,
dark bow.
a thing that you turn on versus an actual gameplay change is always really good.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I think skilling familiars work really well for their specs. Like, I'm going to send something to the bank with my yak. I'm going to
Yeah.
send them to, like, because you use them at a specific time. I think with all the combat ones, in theory, you just spam them, right? Like, as long as you can spam it, you pretty much do. Um, Again, I
Yeah,
know I'm
and then the flip
oversimplifying
side
something, but
with Calg is that obviously everyone wanted it's to auto cast every minute, so now it just auto casts every minute, and you don't even interact with your Calg, which
it's
arguably
just
is
a
nicer,
passive at
but
that
then it's just
stage.
it's just a passive now. Yeah, the spec doesn't really have any meaningful thought.
Yeah, so I think I'd like to clean that up from a design angle because it kind of comes back to everything we discussed in invention. Like from my perspective and my responsibilities for the game, is always thinking bigger picture. There are many people who played this game today, whether you're playing many days a week or just one day a week, but have played for so long, you've gone through eras of it. If you haven't played in a long time, you're returning or you're a new player. There are so many complexities here that simple is often better in a lot of these cases. And simple does not mean bad. Like if summoning to the point is there are a bunch of familiars that are clearly labeled as the DPS familiar or the tank familiar, and you get them and they have passives, and some of them have special attacks. There is a world where not everything needs a special attack. I think there is a world where
Hmm.
if we have less familiars, you can make more meaningful ones. But when there are so many, it's hard to make more meaningful effects, right? Just keep it simple and clean. Okay, I can press this. It can be used every 30 seconds. Cool. It's useful. I know I'm massively oversimplifying, but I think that often you'll find that simple works really well. I have a whole spiel I could give you about deep sea fishing. I know that sounds random as an option, but like where it does simple really well.
We can go to fishing next if you'd like.
No, that's just
Or you could just give us the spiel. I don't mind.
I'll simplify it, but I think deep sea fishing as a game update has a lot of stuff in it, but generally speaking, it's more of what you know with a slight twist, and the twist is simple, which is essentially there are sailfish, which is a higher level fish, but it was better than rocktail at the time, right? And ultimately you just catch them the same way you'd normally catch, except there is the opportunity to click on the better fishing spot, which is like the swirling one. Then you look at I call it ZMI fishing, that's what it was called in development, but the swarm fishing, I called it ZMI because of the same way ZMI works, right, with random runes. It's that random fish. That is essentially, it's just fishing, but the fish you catch is based on your level, so it slightly differs. Cool. And I can get fish that I don't yet have the level for. Jellyfish is, it's just fishing, but spots are bad sometimes. There are learnings from that as well, for sure. But you know what I mean? Like they are just simple changes. It's the skill you know, but slightly twisted. And ultimately, on paper, it's like they all have. People still ZMI fish today. People sailfish today. People do all the fishing methods, but they are very simple. There's not a complex design behind them. And I think sometimes people can get, especially combat goes into this territory where an item has like a 5-line passive effect plus 3-line special attack, and to
Yep.
some degree, it doesn't need to.
I hate it.
But yeah, that's a short version.
Yeah, I feel like that. I mean, it almost ties into what you'd suggested for divination, which is just like very simple spot that is laid back, spot that is good energy, spot that is good XP, different varying levels of AFK. Like to me, that's what DSF does really well. Is there are reasons to interact with all of the nodes or not interact with all of the nodes depending on what your account goals are, and I think that always works out very elegantly.
Yeah, I mean, actually, sorry, just a quick thing on like wood cutting. Even woodcutting has simple things which are like I know Pup mentioned willow trees. The reason people used to go to certain woodcutting spots, right, is because of the cluster of trees or how close they are to banks. That is a simple design decision that could be made with something new. E.g., we are adding a new. I'm just trying to think like a fishing spot, and assume portals didn't exist for a moment. Making it a better spot could just be putting it close to a bank. Like that is a simple solution, but that automatically makes that method good and viable, and it's just things like that. Like some of the simplest solution are often is Occam's razor. I don't know if anyone knows my reference, but simple solution is often the best solution.
Yeah, I mean the new Haven Height spot, well the one from the first update is right next to that deposit box, which makes it quite nice for various reasons.
Okay.
Even though the deposit box you have to unlock, which makes no sense. But we won't talk about that.
No, it makes sense. But moving back into summoning, I feel like we're pretty much all in agreement of reworking some familiars and removing some familiars. Is that sort of the rundown for summoning, or do we
Yeah, I
have
think
different changes?
mine is essentially what yours is.
Okay, so I'll copy mine over if you'd like.
It's just remove some of the familiars, rework others, and add some lower tier versions of useful familiars. Like my thought for the familiars is that every familiar should be useful. It's just that once you outlevel that familiar, it's obviously no longer useful. But it you know, if I'm
It
20
was useful,
attack,
yeah.
or I want to go do, you know, wood cutting and there's a wood cutting familiar, it might be really useful for me at level 30. That type of thing. I feel like there should be not too many familiars that are just kind of there because they exist.
Yep. Should we pull? I feel like I know what's going to happen if we pull this one, but I will pull it. We'll see how it does.
While we pull that, does Mod Ryan have a change?
Yes, that's a good question.
I did. I gave my changes.
Okay, let's pretend that we wrote them down and didn't forget them. What would your one change be?
on top of your ones, it would be
You could do the
simplifying the
same one.
Slayer points and the summoning points
Summoning points and spec points.
and scrolls,
And
just all of that.
scrolls.
Because I
Got
think
you.
summoning is a simple skill by definition, and it doesn't need to be complex. It has 20 summoning familiars, all with 20 useful effects, and you press summon and you use scroll, and you go to obelisk and make it done. Skill is very simple but has value.
I like that a lot, actually. I think part of it too is like I wish there was variety in familiars. Like a Ripper that costs a bunch of scrolls to use and is high upkeep but does good damage. Great. I would love something that doesn't have scrolls at all and just auto attacks and does a lot of damage. I'd like
I
something
think no.
like a Cowg with
The
80% uptime, so I have to click
You
it
mean
when I
old
want to
Ripper
alt.
Demon?
Yeah, the enjoyment of not using, like when I had my Iron Man, my group Iron Man, the enjoyment of not using scrolls was just very freeing. Because it just kind of like you just got it, and then that was just it. It just be that way, you know.
That honestly, that is actually something you were mentioning earlier, which in a vacuum, in isolation, sorry, the point you mentioned earlier, which was about relics, but you said because you have them, you want to use them. And I think it's the same concept here. Like if you have a familiar and it has a scroll that can be used, even if it is plus 0.1%, let's say as a high level player, you use everything in your arsenal. And I
Yeah.
think RuneScape has kind of gotten to that stage, especially at the end game, where there's stacks on stacks of possible bonuses and things you can apply. And I don't mean bonuses in like buff bar necessarily. Why wouldn't you use it? And I think that's where each individual thing, to your point of it's freeing to just summon a Ripper Demon and never have like maybe there is a world
Yes.
where scrolls just don't exist and you just summon the familiar and the summoning's benefit is you've got a familiar that does something passively. Like maybe like if we ask ourselves what benefit is there really in scrolls, because high level players, correct if I'm wrong, you're spamming them for the
Yep,
most part,
you're just cranking them.
Yeah.
or and your average player is either not pressing it at all. So, like, is that this? I don't even want to call it skill expression, but is that skill expression high level player even valuable to you? Not really.
No.
No.
So, again, I'm not suggesting we remove scrolls, but ultimately, the way in which they currently sit, it's not really adding fun. It's adding a thing I do because why wouldn't I do it?
It's kind of
And
like the Vuln
ultimately,
Bomb situation, I think.
exactly, yeah.
The Vuln Bomb situation.
It's like,
Yup.
yeah, you use it because it's better, but there's no thought that goes into using it. You just kind of, like, there's not even any time loss using it. There's not any, cost. It's just do it.
I'm like writing these things down as like questions to ask Ryan at a later point or towards the end of today. Just because, yep, that's another really good one.
Poisonous cinders aren't the same way, I'd argue, because you are losing out on a different type of glove slot. There's a trade-off there. Even if the trade-off is obviously pick cinders, there's still some form of a trade-off. Vuln bombs, there is no trade-off apart from just owning the vuln bombs.
Can I just say your skiller is insane, Ryan? That's just ridiculous.
I don't even log into this account anymore. Honestly,
just
I
don't
haven't
have the
played
flex.
this.
Well,
I haven't
I
played this
mean,
account since archaeology, so
Oh,
very long
wow.
time.
consider us all very flexed on. That is kind of insane to have 200 below on a level 3. Did you ever have to do like a skill reset? Because I know at some point they changed which
Yes,
skills
yeah.
counted. It was summoning, right? Used to not. So then,
So it was summoning and HP. No, sorry.
Oh no,
It was
what went wrong?
HP and prayer. HP and prayer. I had 99 prayer and HP. I did 2000 zeal at Soul Wars back in the day for it, and then yeah, when we changed back from Combat 4 to 3, it was all offered the reset. So I lost my 2000 zeals worth of.
Oh
There's some good
no.
memories. Soul Wars was good fun back in the day. But yes, I did do the reset.
did you help very much?
Pardon, sorry?
Were you able to help very much? With
Playing
one of
Soul
every
Wars.
combat skill? Yeah.
I used to have fun with all the other people that wanted to do it, where we would get people to follow, and then you like run into a corner and put a barricade up, and then they like help because they need you to get them out. It was just good fun. It was just vibes, It's just like have
Yeah,
fun
fair
running
enough.
around, and it was good. But yes, why are we
Yeah,
talking about
that's
my
a
account? Oh, you're
that's
just
a
here.
sick account. Just because you logged in and you were standing next to us, so I was taking a quick look. I
Okay, I
felt
think
very flexed on.
since you're representing my flex, I think the most interesting part about that account is more its ranks on the high
What
scores
are
more
its
than
ranks?
anything.
Tell us.
No. I'm just letting you know because ultimately, it was my first account to do the 200 mil all on, so it was like
Hmm.
I
7 to 10 years ago that it was done. So
wait, but I thought JMods didn't play the
Interesting.
game. You have 200 mil all on two
You don't.
accounts. How did you do that without playing the game?
I live the game, so it's different, I think. But yeah, oh, you're looking on stream. Yeah, look, you get to see. This is the real flex. You
I
made me
guess you
flex now.
go to the like the skill or look at the ranks.
Keep
So any
scrolling. Go to
any
the
double
bottom.
digits?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
a
rank
double digit in there.
There is a double digit in there.
rank 18 construction. That's sick.
That's
Rank
quite
400
sick.
divvy, rank 200 hunter, rank 111 smithing, rank 149 firemaking, 187 fly. This is a disgustingly cool account. That's insane.
What's his archaeology rank?
440.
Pretty good. If that was your last
That's
skill.
that's that's 440 with Imcamdo Matic because I couldn't get the best one,
Mhm.
and I equally, as you know, released the skill. So I spent the first many days and weeks not playing the skill as
Okay, that
much
might
as
be
I'd
the
like.
biggest flex of the bunch.
Yeah.
It was good fun.
Cool.
Yeah, that's actually
Anyway,
nuts. Invention's kind of nuts too when you think about how slow it is to train without combat. Did you just do like a
Hmm.
stupid amount of fishvention or smithvention or
so the only thing that was out was fishing. Well, when Invention came out, and again, I don't know how many people know this, but you couldn't train Invention via skills for the first month. The woodcutting and well, sorry, you couldn't you train it via tools or leveling equipment. You could only do it via making gizmos
Hmm.
because the tools like skilling didn't exist, and then woodcutting and fishing came out. Yeah, like a month later, and that's essentially what method I did to 200 mil. But I did a lot of gizmo making at the beginning. Yeah,
Did you do any hand cannon disassembling by any
no,
chance?
I did not.
Ah.
I feel like a lot of people in chat weren't around for that controversy. That was a crazy one. The hand cannon method.
What are we moving on
Classic.
to?
Yeah, good question. Also, Ryan, I want to be conscious of your time as well. Like, I'm super happy chatting for as long as you would like to, but
Yeah,
I
if
know
there's any
you
skills you'd
probably have
rather
work tomorrow. If
touch
there's
on.
anywhere you'd like to talk about or anything skill related or otherwise, we can easily go there.
Let's talk about Slayer.
Ooh,
Oh,
okay. I have some hot takes about Slayer. I actually don't love Slayer as a skill, so I'm kind of
is that a hot take?
excited to get into it. Apparently, Slayer is people's number one skill. Like on if you
Oh,
when players get pulled on their favorite skill, everybody says Slayer. But
interesting.
yeah, okay. So Ryan, you picked Slayer.
Wait, let me correct the order. The order of favorite skills is well, by survey data, it's
Necromancy.
archaeology, then
Archaeology,
necromancy, and then
necromancy.
I think Slayer is either like three or four, like it's one of the top ones. Yeah.
Okay, got
Got
it.
you.
So it's up there. I'm probably going off of survey data from before those skills existed, so
Some
that
big
could be the
No,
one.
it's good. Let me give my Slayer views first for once, as in, um, I think you guys went first in the other ones. I try not to bias it, but I picked the skill. I think Slayer again very interesting because Mark, as in Mod Mark, once told me a story about how like Slayer was designed and made. Um, it's the sort of skill that ultimately was designed in a very quick amount of time, right? Because by its nature, it's okay, we're going to have some people that are going to tell you to go and kill certain creatures, and you're going to kill certain creatures. That's it, right? That's all Slayer was on a release. Slayer points didn't exist, etc. That came later on. So it's very cool as an original concept. It was then just a case of what are the new Slayer creatures? What creatures do we want to type behind levels? And then what are their drops? And then equally, of course, original Slayer was very much what Slayer item do I need to kill said creature? Modern Slayer creatures, we don't really do that anymore, right? Like bring a fire cape for ice worms or bring rock salt for creatures, etc. Mirror shield. Anyway, I think Slayer, as an awesome skill, has suffered from what we were talking about earlier. So apologies if people didn't catch that part, which is it's got layers and layers and layers of additional quality of life on top of each other that it's kind of gotten a bit complex, or unnecessarily detailed. For example, you have block lists, prefer lists, Slayer VIP coupons, a cape to pick your task. I'm missing loads of others. What are the other ones?
Slayer Homestand.
Slayer helms, dragon trinkets, like wild cards. You name it, right? Like this list goes on. Yeah, archaeology relic, the min max your task. It's kind of like Slayer got all this stuff, but I'd love to strip it back to simple. And equally, it's had a number of Slayer masters now, which I think there are too many. Kind of the summoning problem. There are arguably a bit too many Slayer masters, especially in the early to, let's say, mid game. I think that there are more than you need. And then when it comes to tasks, ultimately over time, just the way in which this has gone, and I don't want to get into topic necessarily about drop tables here, but I think that when we release new Slayer creatures, it kind of gets to this scenario now whereby drop rates are kind of balanced around what is rare to get from this creature right now for the release, and this kind of makes some of the mid-game Slayer creatures, they to be honest, to some degree, have too rare drop tables for the items that their use cases now. I think this came up recently, right, in conversation around the vampirism gloves, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, anyway, I think Slayer is awesome as a skill. Like it is cool to be assigned a thing, go do a thing, kill it, and come back. It's just cool. It's a cool core game loop that we love as RuneScape players. But I think all this fluff in between could be simplified. Like I've talked about it enough over the months, I think, when asked. But I'd love to see a world where Slayer VIP coupons are gone. Just to clean up a bunch of that stuff. This whole I can pick my task, etc. Like we could just by default being assigned a Slayer task is do you want A or B? That's just how Slayer is assigned now to give players a choice within the moment. It's a bit more like modern take on it. Um, I'd love to just clean this up, streamline it. That's what I'd probably say. A streamline of Slayer so that it's easy to get into, it's easy to understand. You don't need this overhead of all this stuff. Again, there is a wiki that essentially tells you what tasks you should block and what tasks you should prefer and what Slayer mosh you should use and what you should cancel based on what like that just needs to like be cleaned up. That's not a simple change. Again, that's kind of overhaul. I think on a simple change perspective, I would probably say something along the idea of making it kind of comes back to what we said before, meaningful milestones throughout the skill. Once upon a time, it was great to get a whip from an Abbey Demon. Of course, that's not necessarily meaningful anymore. Making the journey throughout Slayer feel meaningful and feel progressive. Of course, we've made a lot of leaps and bounds with Slayer points over the years. Once upon a time, they were only from Smoke and Kills quest, and then we made it so you get them full stop. But I think it's half points until you do the quest. But yeah, that shop probably needs a bit of a cleanup as well. Anyway, I'm rambling. Long story short, Slayer is good, but I think it's suffered from 25 years of complexity. Actually, 23 years. I think it came out in 2004, but
That's
22,
wild.
Very valid.
I mean, for what it's worth, that is exactly it. I've been fighting my chat about this one, so thank you for front running. Because sometimes I say I don't like Slayer, and people go, "What? What do you mean you don't like Slayer?" And then you parse more into like why they like Slayer, and they have all of the stuff unlocked and the 120 cape, and they like that they get to just pick their own task and then do it and then repeat it forever because of the way their block list is set up and whatever. And yeah, that's my whole thing as well. I am not a fan whatsoever of VIP tickets. I'm not a fan of the way that I'm actually okay with block lists. Slayer Helm Stand I don't think is necessary. Trinkets, wildcards, all that stuff, not great. The 120 cape I think is a really obvious one where it is extremely overpowered in terms of what it gives you, where for a lot of people it's like the skill doesn't become fun until you get some of these really, really endgame things. You touched on this, but a lot of the lower mid-level Slayer rewards aren't really great. And then I think the other one for me as well, about Slayer that I'm not like fully sold on is, oh wait, I just lost my train of thought. I agree on the too many Slayer masters as well. Well, apparently in old school block lists are master specific. I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's very
it
cool.
was a change. Yeah, it was a really good change they made, I think, last year as part of Summer Sweep Up. But yeah, exactly that. It makes sense then, right? Like you block per Slayer Master versus a universal generic block list, which I know in the modern
Mhm.
world of playing RuneScape, it's like, oh, I've got to clear some to change it if I want to farm points. Again, that whole farming points from low-level Slayer Master stuff, I don't think should exist. It's again, I assume you know what I mean. The whole do 9
Yeah.
task and then go do
Yep.
one good
Yeah.
task. It's is yeah, it's cool to have meta methods, but the best way to earn Slayer points should just be just doing the best Slayer tasks, right?
For sure. I think there's almost too
Got it.
much choice in task as well. And you get so many, you get an infinite amount of points by doing Reapers. So instead of the premise of the skill, which is Master tells you what to kill, you go kill it, it's now re-roll until you get to kill the exact thing that you want to kill and then kill it and then repeat that. I just think it's a
Yep.
very different skill from what it was. And I would want to peel back basically everything so it got back to Slayer Master gives you a couple choices. You pick one of the two choices. And I think part of that too is the Reaper situation where you can now do infinite Reapers to then get infinite Slayer points. And then when you're training Slayer, you effectively have an infinite amount of skips. Like you can just keep re-rolling. I'm not a fan of any of it. I think at its core, Slayer is awesome, but it isn't actually, anything close to what it used to be, or what I used to enjoy about Slayer. I have one other thought about Slayer that I've always hated though too, which is that our elite Slayer mobs suck in like a very respectful
Yes.
way. They don't mean anything. You get the big named Abyssal Demon of Doom, and he has no new mechanics. You don't even notice you have it. He might have a slightly higher chance of dropping unique, but I think when you look over, and I played a little bit of old school for leagues, it was my first time playing the game, and when you get an elite mob, you get hyped because the XP reward is actually so high that it's a massive boon to your task, and then they have a chance of their own drop table that is only exclusive to the elites. And you can specifically get excited about a task that has an elite. And that like little sprinkle of dopamine and happy chemicals when you get one, I think is really missing from Slayer in RS. But other than that, I agree with everything that you had said about Slayer.
There was
Yeah, I
another
think
point
the
mentioned,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
you go ahead.
quick thing that was mentioned, and someone mentioned it in the chat. Well, there's two things. We can talk about Soul Reaper later, actually, but there's something someone else mentioned around uh, doing bosses on task. I think Sponge and Pigeon have discussed this many times, which is like the fact it comes back to that friction point we're discussing earlier. Oh, I want to do Kerapack. Okay, I should get a Dragonkin's task, or so that I have that whole benefit. Honestly, we've discussed this before. Realistically, bosses just shouldn't benefit from Slayer tasks because that friction point of needing a task to do a thing is probably the simple solution. Like they are just not benefit from Slayer. I think old school they do benefit from them, but I think that the different type of game that we're in, the way at which it works, this like I just want to do a boss and I need to go and prepare 50 different things, one of which is get the right Slayer task. I just don't think it. We just don't think it makes sense. You should just be able to load up. Yeah, you want to kill Carapat? Let's go. And I know that it's easy to say we don't need the task. I think there are many people that
Won't do it without the task.
won't do it without doing the task, even though like the idea comes back to the daily scape stuff, right? It's easy to say don't do it, but when it exists, and I know I could get that extra bit of whatever it may be, power, people still feel obligated, I would say, to do it.
My take on that is I fully agree that the process of getting a task is unfun. And for a lot of people, you wait till you're 120 Slayer to start doing certain bosses so that you can get the tasks more quickly. To me, I really like doing a boss as a means to train Slayer, but I don't think the Slayer helmet buff should work. So that's personally, but I'm curious what you think about that. Like, I like the idea of if I want to spend a week doing a Karapak task, it's good XP, but I wouldn't want it to speed up my kills. I would just want the kill to be the kill.
Right. Oh, yeah. I see what you mean. That's like, yeah, when people used to get Dagannoth tasks, right? You do DKs.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I am a fan of.
It's been interesting listening to both of your thoughts. Um, Slayer for me is not a skill I enjoy. For one reason, and the reason is it feels entirely pointless to me. I feel like there is essentially no reward space. I have like no problems obviously training it. You can kind of do it as you're doing. I like the whole master tells you to go do the thing, you go do the thing. But the reward space kind of feels like it's either you unlock the level to go and kill a monster for a drop that you need, which to me feels very arbitrary because the level is just there to give Slayer a reason, or it's you have the level to go and do a boss task, which going back to the whole thing, I agree. I don't think it should give the deepest increase, but I like doing Slayer leveling at a boss. But yeah, for me the whole thing is that nothing you really get from Slayer, with the exception of maybe Cinderbanes and probably one or two other items, is actually that useful. So I feel like it's a skill that just has no use, no reward space, no relevance, personally. And maybe I'm viewing Slayer in the wrong way. I've just like I don't see the point of it, honestly. Like
I mean, I think that ties into.
so,
Go ahead.
yeah. So my view is, let's say I go get an Abyssal Demon task, right? And I go and do the Abyssal Demon task, and I get Slayer XP from it. Or I could just go and kill the Abyssal Demons not on task. And to me, they're kind of just the same thing. The only benefit is I'm then leveling Slayer by doing it on task. But then what I get from leveling Slayer is I can then go and kill a different creature on task. Like I feel like I'm in a weird endless loop that never actually ends because there's never any actual reward from the Slayer XP I'm getting.
Do you think that ties into what Ryan had said earlier about how the rewards need to be more plentiful through the mid game? And the example given was like getting that Abyssal Whip was a big account upgrade and a very valuable item. So getting that
Yes.
task felt worthwhile because if you get that
I
task and you
think
get on task rates, it's like that's a good thing. Or even just you grind to 85 so that you can kill that creature for that drop that it has. But in RS, that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, I think mid game and also end game, because the whole concept in old school, right, is you level up, or RS3, but 10, 20 years ago, is you level up Slayer so you can go kill a monster to get the item from it. But now is none of the items useful, so you don't really gain anything from leveling up Slayer in the first place.
I think part of old school's Slayer reward space, just to use that as a comparison, is they have a ton of Slayer only bosses as well, and not like irrelevant ones like the Magister that is not terribly
I
important, but they have
I
like the
like
Hydra
that.
as a Slayer boss. So like when you unlock Hydras, you're not only unlocking a new Slayer task to kill, but you're also
You're looking a
unlocking
boss.
an actual boss encounter. And I feel like the
Hmm.
Magister gets a
From
really bad rep because 115 is an absurdly high requirement for what is effectively
for
a
what it
mid-level
is.
boss. Like
Yep.
the Magister should be level 95 or level 90 at
This
most.
I think lower person,
this
but yes, we
actually
get the idea. But yeah, just to finish before Ryan speaks, I think from playing old school, although there was a little bit of annoyance when I realized that a boss was a Slayer boss and I needed a task, it then meant that going to get a Slayer level unlocked me so much more than just a mob to kill that didn't drop me anything. And I think that reward space, even if it is just an extra boss that you can then kill, felt a lot more worthwhile.
yeah, I think it's complicated. And I say that in the sense of, with full hindsight, I think that across the unique Slayer creatures, those that have a requirement to kill, e.g., an Abyssal Demon cannot be attacked without having a Slayer level. So not Fire Giants. They, you get assigned a task of things you can already kill. You're just doing what you're asked by the Slayer Master to level it up. I think in practice it is a core loop that people enjoy. Like it is by nature, like from a game design perspective. Hey, go and kill X creature X times, and you go and do it. You feel satisfied. You come back. You get another task. You level it up to get to a certain level, and that level unlocks things, whether that's a unique creature, e.g., the Abyssal Demon, or to your point, which old school do quite well with, is a boss. Like we could be tying more bosses behind Slayer levels, whether they're Slayer bosses. But there was a conversation, I think, with Sanctum whether or not we wanted to have a Slayer requirement on it because obviously it's a Dark Beast. We are, and you are slaying. I can't pronounce it, but the axe, which are, again are Slayer levels, like the gorillas, the Sallowas, etc. But it was ultimately like if we put a Slayer level requirement on this, you put it so end game, was it the right thing to do? And then equally, when we were doing obviously raids, doesn't have a Slayer requirement, and they have arrows, just as an example. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's kind of a pros and cons to either side. But anyway, what I'm trying to say there is I think that Slayer bosses have a place, whether they are quite literally, to your point, like a Cerberus, or a gargoyle boss, or it's just thematically appropriate creatures. I think take like Ascension Dungeon. The bosses itself are more relevant to the why the content exists. The Slayer mobs are secondary. Like that wasn't made for the actual mobs in the dungeon as the priority, right? It was more the actual boss. I think things like Ascension Dungeon are great, except they haven't aged well again because at the time the rarity etc was perfect because Ascension bows were so good. Now Ascension bows are, let's say, not good. Ultimately, I think that if we were to ever do a pass of let's look at the gear progression across the game and change the drop rates appropriately, I think something like Ascensions would come massively down. So that it's a viable drop because I think all mid to late game drops, to your point, aren't really worth getting anymore because they're so rare to get that you may as well either just buy the thing or just skip it.
Yeah, I think that's skipping it. Like, I think we're basically in the same boat of that. Slayer hasn't aged well and needs a bit of a cleanup, but I think for me it's the reward space hasn't aged well. Like, what if, for example, like Undead Slayer Sigil, what if that was a Slayer unlock from getting X Slayer level rather than it being an Invention DG thing?
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
think I
no,
think there
Ports.
needs to be more from Slayer personally, more than just you unlock the level to kill a thing.
yeah,
That's my view,
more.
at least.
No, absolutely. I think again, this is maybe I wouldn't say it's a hot take. It's a hot take amongst people I talk to at work sometimes about it. I think that RuneScape has sorry, let's not say has too many, doesn't have enough untradables. I
Yes,
think that
100% agree.
having
Agree
tradable drops
completely.
originally. Okay, well, go. It's approved Monday release. I think having tradable drops is really valuable. We have an economy. We are a very open game, but there is a lot of value and excitement about untradable drops. Right? It encourages you to do the content. I think we know this. Fire Cape, Kiln
Hmm.
Cape, Zuck Cape. It feels great to earn it,
Yes.
and it's fine then to like the same degree. Like there are good tradable items that Slayer comes out, you grind it, you sell the whips, great money for those who get the Slayer level. But otherwise, if you think about a new player or a returning player, there is a world where someone says, "Oh, don't bother doing that content, just go to the G and buy it." But there is something fun about if your Slayer milestone journey was, I'm just making these numbers up, but at level 30 kill a creature to get Vampirism gloves, you'll get them after 50 kills. At level
Hmm.
62, you unlock X other creature, kill those to get a book unlock. Whatever it may be, filling untradables in those milestones encourages players to go and engage with the content, and equally, it feels meaningful because you're guaranteed it. At the moment, of course, those drops are 1 in 1,000. The mid game player doesn't really have the time to kill 1,000 of those, or even the stats to kill 1,000 of those to even get the drop. Um,
Yeah, they're
but
not
yeah,
really
anyway.
really balanced. Well, I definitely agree with the untradeable thing. Like, I really enjoyed doing the thieving heists because my aim was to get the melee ammo slot item that was untradeable. Um, and then the minute it became tradable, I just went and bought it and haven't done heists since. And obviously that's player specific, but I think there does need to be an untradeable physical actual reason to go and do some content for something, but that it doesn't have to be rare. Like, let's say you had an untradeable Slayer drop that was from 115 Slayer, but when you get 115 Slayer, you just get it. Like, there's no drop rate, you just get it. But you still have to go and get that 115 Slayer, kind of like how archaeology relics work. Obviously, relic blah blah, but you're leveling up the skill because the reward is the level effectively, and I think that's a really nice space where it's not then an RNG grind. It's you're leveling up for the item, and you know that you get the item. Is that
I
fire Slayer point shop? I mean, no. It's just you just get it when you get 115 Slayer.
I
Maybe
think
there's a mob that you can only kill at 115 Slayer that has a 1-in-1 drop rate or something.
to me, I don't feel like it necessarily needs to not be like a unique drop that you get lucky and get excited about. Like I don't think for the Sanguine Crawler, example at level 30 Slayer, I don't think you need to have it guaranteed at 50. But if the
Mm-hmm.
drop rate was such that you'd get it within a task, and once you have it, you can't get it anymore, and it's untradeable, that's cool. And if you're unlucky, you might need a second or a third task, but that's kind of okay. But I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that just comes down to drop rate balancing, where I'd almost prefer if it was just balanced in such a way that I level up to get access to the task. I get the task. I get excited because it's more likely than not that I'll get the drop that I want from that task. I think not to like fixate on that one example, but the fact that a task of Sanguine Crawlers is like 60 of them, and you could conceivably kill thousands of them without getting the drop, and it's supposed to be level
Yeah.
30. Like that to me, it's just a balancing issue more than anything else. But I do like the idea of more untradeable things. I think
Yeah.
when you're
I mean, I
talking
think
about player journey as well, I'll just finish this one thought. I think people have strong positive memories about the things that they grinded out for themselves. I think if you could buy a Zuck cape on the GE, people would, you know,
yeah.
they'd be missing out on an experience that they remember. You remember getting your first fire cape, your first kiln cape, your first Zuck cape because it's an untradeable reward. So I'm not saying mains should be Iron Man mode, because sometimes people go, "Oh, you're advocating that everything become Iron Man mode." But absolutely there should be more untradeable rewards that are sought after. Doesn't need to be your whole loadout, and there should be a good mix, but there should be some untradeable stuff that you want to actually play the game and get yourself and feel good about.
Definitely agree. Like the Zug Cape's a great example. That it's untradeable. It's it's a tough boss fight. It wouldn't be anywhere near as impactful or as relevant or as much of an achievement if it was just tradable. Um, and yeah, going back to what you said earlier, like I think I'm happy. Obviously, if something is still a normal drop rate, like a 1 in 100, 1 in 200, it depends on the levels, the boss HP, all that stuff, or mob HP. Sorry, but I think I would prefer, like, let's say Sanguine Crawlers, for example. Obviously, that's a bit of a contentious one currently. I'd prefer if the level rec was, let's say, 5 or maybe even 10 levels higher, but then the drop rate is significantly more common. Because you're then making tangible gains towards that drop as you're leveling up, rather than it being at a lower level in theory, but a random RNG roll with obviously no threshold or anything. So, like, let's say, going back to that whole thing, if let's say you had a drop at 115 Slayer, it could still be a normal drop from a mob, but as you're trading up to that 115 Slayer, you're still thinking in your head, yeah, I'm making progress towards this drop. I think that would be, yeah, I'd like to see, I guess, more useful items.
Just a thought on this. I think we've basically just reconstructed the argument for dupe protection, but via the proxy of Slayer, almost.
Yes.
Of your progression and wanting to feel like you're closer to your goal in a slightly linear way.
Yes.
Boot protection is a entire conversation in itself.
That's a big one.
We don't need to do that one today, but if you're down, I would love to at some point.
Well, there was a thing that was unrelated to Slayer that you guys were talking about. What got me? It's a point that I thought about before. Anyway, I'll just say it. It's probably easier. Is there is a world where, like, using the Ascension Dungeon as an example, you are currently leveling ranged, or you are kitting out your ranged gear. You go to Ascension Dungeon because you want to get a ranged upgrade. You use range to get it. There is a world where, sorry, we could talk about it in RuneScape's. The way RuneScape is made today, pretty much every boss that is released can be done with every single style, and it has a range of rewards. We haven't really done a style locked boss since I'm excluding Necro, to be honest, for a moment. Like,
okay.
Prior to Necro, I don't remember the last style locked boss we did. I think it might
Like
be
it has to be
Ascensions.
Ascensions. Yeah.
Yeah, which again was 12 years ago. So that's really interesting because Rex Matriarchs. Okay, yeah, good point.
Are we
I
counting
think
those?
yeah. I think it's interesting because if you want to get a ranged upgrade, who was I talking? I was talking to Modiago earlier today. We were actually talking about how Araxor's drop mechanics is actually kind of ahead of its time, in the sense of when you go into that encounter, you choose which path you want to do because you want to build. It's not bad luck mitigation per se, but it kind of is because you choose the path because you know what leg you're guaranteed, and then equally, if you want to build the scythe, you know how to get the scythe piece right based on how you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm assuming everyone just knows the mechanics. That's very interesting because it's not bad luck mitigation, but it's I know which drop I want, so I'm going to build the encounter so that I get it. That's actually very interesting, and I think that that kind of encourages you. The same thing I mentioned, although it's opposite, but like using certain styles, etc., etc. Anyway, long story short, I think there is a world where I would love to do more style locked bosses. I think I'm not saying we will, but I think there is a world where we should. It's like a new ranged boss comes out. Um,
Hmm.
and range boss has range upgrades, and you need to range said boss to get it. You do not just turn up and I love maging, so I'm going to mage everything for all my unlocks. I think there's a cool progression to I used my ascension bow. Damn, look at the drop I just got. You take your ascension bow off and you upgrade it to the new. Like there is that feeling of progression that, to be honest, has somewhat gone. There are cons to that, by the way, absolutely, but I think there are pros as
So a
well.
thought. So obviously Ascensions, you roll up with range and you get range gear. And Necro, you roll up with Necro and you get Necro gear. But Rax is a little bit different because if you mage, you're more likely to get the melee piece, which I really like because it means that you're using a style, and obviously you're not guaranteed. But let's say you added a range boss, right? You have to range the range boss, but it doesn't give you range drops. Let's say it only gives you mage drops. I would really like that because I think it allows people to, well, it doesn't allow people, it forces people almost to use another style. Like if you're a range main, you might do it because you can range, but you're only going to get mage drops, which might incentivize you to lean into mage. So I
Yeah,
think there is
that's
an interesting thing with style lock bosses where the style you use doesn't have to be the style it drops.
doesn't have to be, but I think yeah, there's always the pros and cons to that, of course, which is I've only got enough money for one style right now. I can't actually upgrade it because I need an entirely another style to get the upgrade.
Hmm.
Just a theoretical. I think some people's in the chat mentioned a good point, which is basically like kiln cape, um, just as a concept, right? Which is do the kiln with mage to get the mage cape. To your point there, issue this same style, it's like, well, if I want a mage upgrade, so say Rax drops all three pieces, right? And
Hmm.
sorry, an upgrade for all four combat styles for a moment. You can't just pick one combat style and earn all four upgrades and complete the collection log. You'd have to actually use all four styles to get all four drops. Because then, yeah, like you say, you'd need to necro to get necro drop. Just making that
In
up.
theory, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting. There is a time and a place for all these sorts of things. But at the moment, most recent bosses are essentially they have a lot of pros of you can turn up and use your favorite style and kill it with your friends or on your own for a solo boss, which is great. But then if it's a mage, if it can be killed by any style and it drops an upgrade for all, it drops a melee range and mage upgrade, it can feel a bit. Um, are we missing a trick sometimes? Especially with
Mhm.
encouraging you to use other styles and teaching you more and upgrade order and journey and stuff.
Yeah, I find. Oh, you can go ahead.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Um, no, I was gonna say I think there are pros and cons to both, but I feel like we've moved too far in one direction where you get one style and then you can do the whole game with that one style. And I don't necessarily think Ascension style you can only range this boss is good, but I do like it when some bosses go better with a preferred style. So if you need to, you can, I mean it kind of reminds me of Rax a bit, where like back in the day, maging Rax was just harder than any of the other styles there. You could still do it though, and you could still get by maging Rax if that was the style you had, but if you were struggling, the solution was probably to look at switching to ranged because that
Yeah.
style works better there. And I think this entire discussion kind of leans a little bit into, in my opinion, RuneScape's weakness system is just terrible and it needs to be reworked. And I think it should be like to me, it's a really important thing that old school does a lot better, where, oh, wow, this boss takes 40% more damage from earth spells. Oh, this boss, it's easier to hit with this, but you could also hit it with this. And I think that adds so much depth to an upgrade path where you're not saying, oh, you just arbitrarily can't use any of these styles at this boss, but you're giving someone a clear pathway where if you're undergear this way, and then you can play the content. And I personally much prefer that. I think our weakness system is very confusing to a lot of people too, because like I'll even say it now, like the idea that you can attack something that is weak to fire spells with a fire spell and it doesn't do more damage. I would bet
It's
people
a
in my
lot.
chat would expect that they see an icon on Krill that says weak to fire. They would try to use a fire spell, assuming that they would do more damage with a fire spell, but it just doesn't do that at all.
Hmm.
So it
I think
feels very pointless. But just as a possible solution, to me, you don't necessarily need to rework bosses or make a bunch of new bosses with different style restrictions. You could instead rework the weakness system and make it make a little more sense.
yeah, I fully agree. I think there are definitely pluses to style locked things, but there are also cons. Um, Obviously, if you dislike one style, and then they add a boss called Raziel, and you have to use that one style, it means that you might not enjoy doing that boss. Not because the boss is necessarily bad, it's because the style you have to use it isn't something you enjoy. Whereas, let's say you did 20% less damage with a different style, you might still enjoy doing that. Um, and obviously, if you let's say you reworked the weakness system, I feel like you could add a little bit more to it. So it's not just more damage; it could also be less damage taken. So going back to that Rax thing, obviously, if you're ranging Rax, you're taking way less damage than if you were maging. Or let's say you rolled up to, Krill, and it might be that you do the same damage with every single style of Krill, but if you're maging, you take 10% less damage. I think something like that with an actual kind of a system like that would be quite interesting. Obviously, it's kind of out of scope of everything, but I think going back to that whole thing of everyone just gets one style and rolls up and kills everything, I think that's not great. And I think having reasons to use different styles that aren't just like, I think having a reason to use a different style that isn't every single player is an interesting one. Like, if I take 10% more damage, do I care? Maybe not, but maybe some players do. I think that's really, really useful.
I have a very quick anecdote about this because I a lot of the time we talk about like player journey, and it's always like this hypothetical imaginary player and what they might do. But this account that I'm currently on, my hardcore account, I quit this account and I didn't play it for a full year, about, I don't know, a year after Necromancy came out. And it wasn't because Necromancy was bad. It was because once I finished full best in slot Necromancy, it felt like there was no point or benefit to grinding the other bosses and completing my other loadouts, because the
Yep.
best style to use everywhere was still Necromancy for me as a hardcore that's trying not to die, because Necromancy is so good at that and it works everywhere. And the thing that got me to unretire was combat achievements, where Necromancy isn't as good for speed kill timers as the other styles. So for me, like, if combat achievements hadn't come out, I wouldn't have played this account a single time from the point that I got best in slot Necromancy. And it's not even a critique of Necromancy. It's just that's sort of the negative aspect of every style being good everywhere. And where even if there were a couple bosses where it was worth grinding out the melee gear or the range gear or whatnot, even if it was two bosses, that would have kept me playing and I would have enjoyed those grinds and it would have felt meaningful and important, but that just didn't exist. So yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
those are my thoughts on that.
How did your champ combat achievement grind go? Did you win?
I can't tell anybody. It's a secret.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
right click me.
But yeah, I think this is a discussion that's been had a lot over the years and will probably continue to be had over the years, of the whole, should you style lock a boss? And then there are pros and there are cons, and I feel like some form of I think weakness is confusing because everyone associates that with accuracy, because that's what it's always been. And then accuracy doesn't actually mean more damage sometimes, but only if you're below a certain percent it means more damage, and blah blah blah. And I feel like if you treated it as a more of a, you deal more damage, you take more damage, and it's not actually related to your accuracy, it's just like a 5% damage increase, I think then it becomes kind of a more of a simpler concept to understand for new players. I think that's more what I would want to see. Think like like a salve amulet type of thing.
Chat said this isn't Slayer.
Okay, what did Big Ryan think about that?
What? Which part? Sorry.
Any of it.
But what if you're doing your abyssal demon task and they take 30% more damage with melee
Oh, you
weapons.
went. Sorry, you still want to talk about weakness? Sorry, I was just saying, chat. Like, how did you go from skilling to
The Legio's
this?
pipeline. It's always the Legio's pipeline. Um, I can refocus us in on Slayer. I had one other Slayer thought that is just going to go with all these other sticky notes. I kind of feel like a lot of the issues with Slayer's reward path are just that things have Slayer requirements that are really high because what they drop used to matter more than they do now. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
the
Yes.
Magister is a bad boss, but it's only a bad boss because 115 is absurd for what is not a very good weapon.
It's
But if
it's
it
like
was
if
level
mining hadn't been reworked.
exactly like if the Magister was a level 80 unlock or a level 85 unlock, all of a sudden that is a viable part of everybody's upgrade path in melee. Is you would dungeoneer, you'd get ruinous weapons, and then your next upgrade would be to get Kopeshes. Well,
Okay.
potentially depending on the key system. Yeah.
I think I can answer. Well, not answer, but talk to this. I've brought this up a few times in recent conversations, which is I think in general, if you were to take a holistic view of the game, to your point,
Wait, quick
it's
question.
kind.
Could you explain to Ryan what holistic means? Because I don't know if he knows.
I'm just gonna assume you're being sarcastic. I don't know.
He's trying
I'm
to say
missing
that
the
he
inside
doesn't
joke.
he's trying to say that he doesn't know what that word means and he's asking
Oh, I
for a friend.
see.
He's trying to pin it on me.
Whole picture, big picture.
Okay, got you.
Sorry, apologies. Think about the big picture. Um, I've lost my thought. Okay, what was I saying?
Sorry.
Is wait, you've derailed me. Let me think. What was I gonna say? Oh yes, okay. Yes, look at the big picture of the game and go back over it. It's 25 years of awesome content, but a lot of what gets released when it's released focuses on what it's releasing. So what do I mean by that? I'll give you a good example because we talked about this recently. Is there is a quest called Succession which unlocks Dive. Dive
Yep.
was a thing that players wanted and said, "Hey, we'd love to be able to do this thing." And we said, "Okay, sounds good. Let's make it a reward from this current bit of content we're making because that's what's going out right now." But now, when you look back on it right now, it's like, does it make sense for Dive to come from a quest? And equally, if so, is it the right quest for it to come from? Compare it to things like Surge and Escape. I think, again, that's the sort of interesting thing when you go back on it and look at it, does it make sense? And I think when we looked at mining and smithing, of course, when that was reworked, does it make sense that you need 99 smithing to make a rune plate body? The outcome, of course, was no. And I think to what you're mentioning there, if you took a holistic view of the game and went over, I've got two views here. If you went over to the point on Slayer, over every single creature and what it drops, and looked at it and said, is this the right Slayer level for this drop? You could probably reorder them and retier them. So exactly to your point that you mentioned there, Ryan, which is, yeah, Magister, does Magister really need to be so high if its drops are where it is? Should we just bring it down? Maybe. Why not? Why not do that? I think the same can be said of things like drop rates of things. Like we were discussing earlier, if an item has a high drop rate, it was made high on release for the reasons of we want it to be rare on release. You don't just turn up and get it in 5 minutes. But when you look back on it now, does it still make sense for this mid-tier, mid-game item to be so rare that the mid-game player can't get it? So ultimately, I do think RuneScape, because of how old we are now, which is awesome. Like there is no other game out there like us, which I think is an insane thing that has as much content as we have. It does need some time to look at the bigger picture and maybe address some of the essentially retier, like we talk about with like fletching, retier, and mining, smithing, retier drop tables, retier Slayer. Um, yeah, that's the short of it.
So a quick thing is going back to, I mean, the example of Sanguine Crawlers and the Vamp Gloves. I've seen the argument a lot of if it's more common, which is obviously good for the players it's designed for, then high level players will basically crash the price, and then low level players won't be able to make any money off of obtaining drops that are at their level. How do you fix that?
It's a question of, I think this is not the right. This is not an answer. I'm just as a just taking what you said.
Yeah, just
Is
discussion.
is the mid-level player really doing that content to get that drop to make money? The answer is probably not. So the answer is probably no. The mid-tier player is doing that bit of content because one, they were told to, it's a Slayer task, etc., or they want that item. I don't think when you talk about what should that item be worth something, it's like who's trying to earn it and who's trying to sell it and who's the person that actually wants to buy it. Um, in most of these cases, I do not think your low to mid tier player is looking to buy these items, and then also not looking to get items of this tier to get the money to sell it to buy the other item. Does that make sense? Like they're in a better position to really earn the item. If high level players are grinding this content and crashing the price, I guess the question is why are they grinding this content? First of all, and making sure that that's not for the wrong reason. E.g., they are the best hard clue scrolls in the game, so they're crashing the price of the gloves and making them worthless. So everyone just buys them instead, etc., etc. But ultimately, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's like the question is who is the demand, where is the demand from, and are they actually interested in buying it? I think the average player makes money not via drops. I think drop money, for the most part, is a late game thing. If that makes sense. I think you make money from a lot of other, rare drops. You don't make money from rare drops until late game. I think when I say rare, I mean not commons, right?
Yeah, understood. That's a fair point. Yeah. Didn't really have anywhere else going with that. Just kind of,
conversation.
That's conversation. Well, that's something I've seen by a lot of people is the whole it should be more common, which objectively, well, I was going to say objectively, and I think in the same sentence, which doesn't work. It should be more common.
Subjectively.
Yes. It should be objectively more common. Whatever. But then the counter argument I've seen from a lot of people is that then the item is cheaper, which, from my view, doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah.
But to a lot of people, they think that the value of the item is kind of the be-all, end-all, I guess.
Yeah, the value of an item is always going to be questionable, but it's all relative, right? Like I know plenty of people who like friends that have played RuneScape for 4 years, and 10 mil is a lot to some of them, 50 mil is a lot to others, 500 mil is a lot to others. You know, like depending on the scale of wealth and what you're buying, the concept of buying a 2 billion item was just outrageous for some people. It's all relative, right? Like
Yeah.
what are we looking at here? 23 million
23
for a
mil.
pair of gloves. For a high level player, that's generally nothing, right?
It's kind of nothing. But then for the
But for
players
a low level
designed
player,
for,
it's insane.
that's a
Yeah.
ton. Yeah.
Yeah, like no level 30 is busting out 23
That's another
million
23
gold. Like
mil.
that, I can't think of a single other gear item under tier like 70 or 80 that is in that price range.
See, that's
and this
the
is
thing
level 30.
Even if they have, let's say, 50 mil, the usefulness of that item compared to a lot of other items is different. So it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
a worthwhile 23 mil.
Supply and demand, I'm not going to spend ages talking about supply and demand. That's a whole different conversation as well. But supply and demand is obviously dictates a lot of the price of items anyway. I know that if we use the Sanctum example, where people I have no idea what you just put on your screen, Ryan, but
Well, I'm training
okay.
construction on old school.
there was
so
a-
Oscar Cake was telling me there's a better butler.
There was it was just a screenshot in my chat that I clicked on. Don't worry about it. Pay no mind.
Okay. I was watching you train construction, Pup, and it was slow.
What? Hold up.
But what was I saying? Supply and demand. Yes. Anyway, there was a topic like when Sanctum came out, right around normal mode shouldn't drop the Sanctum weapons, they're too cheap, etc., etc. The actual supply of those weapons, though, comparatively to, as an example, Raziel's arm guard, just to give you a comparison, was like 10 times less in the game, and Raziel's arm guard was worth 5 times as much, right? Like it was like a 500 mil weapon versus like a 100 mil weapon, but there was so many more in the game because more people wanted to use necromancy. More people were interested in necromancy weapons. People at the time weren't interested in magic weapons because magic as a style wasn't used as much. And I think that's kind of the same case for these items. Like, yes, we could apply a higher supply in game because high level players could farm these items, but is the demand actually there? It's easy to say, oh, well, every player wants them. But the low to mid tier player probably doesn't go out their way to go and spend 30 mil on that item, if you know what I mean. So the supply might exist, but the demand actually isn't there. The demand for those items is probably higher when they're cheaper. Otherwise, it's just an item they skip. And I think ultimately, if it should never really be a high level player is supplying a low level player. It should always be the other way around. In general, lower level players grind a thing that high level players want convenience and will buy. But I don't think high level players should be grinding gloves and selling them to low level players. That feels backwards for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, Long story though, that one. Again, I'm very. There is a lot more context to a lot of these conversations. I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, no, that's a good rundown of it. I have said this before, and this doesn't apply to everything universally, but I always get frustrated when things are balanced around the current economy and the current supply and the current demand. Where, to me, and maybe this is me as a mostly Iron Man player, I would rather things were balanced around like how long it should be expected to acquire one of these things via playing the content. And I know that's a completely different way of looking at it, but that's sort of what comes up for me a lot when I'm looking at like stuff like the Gate of Elidness, where I didn't even try to go for the drops on my Iron Man because I just did the math of how long I expected it to take, and I said I value my time more than this. But yeah, it's just
Yep.
a different way of approaching it, but I've never seen it as a good reasoning to be, oh, the drop rates of this should go down because the price needs to go up. Um, I've never felt like in a game like RuneScape with an open market, um, artificially choking demand in order to raise the price has never, yeah, it's never really jived well with me on a concept.
Yeah. I think changing the supply or the demand based upon just general balancing of this item just isn't useful enough for most players is obviously valid, but seeing that an X price and being like, I feel like this should be higher, and then making it more useful obviously doesn't really work. Um, but then, like for example, Gate of Lidness, right? The drops are stupidly rare. And the Dowser is still very much in demand because it's so impactful. Is that a bad thing?
There's no right answer, to be honest with you, because I think it's the case of the people, for argument's sake, the people who want to make money, killing bosses, doing clues, etc. The most valuable items in the game are those items that are rare and are in high demand, right? Naturally,
Mm-hmm.
and even in the cases of the consumables, even more so, right? Or those that are locked to you, bind on equip sort of deal. It's not a bad thing. It's the game needs room for both. I think that's kind of the thing where it needs rare drops that are worth money. It needs mid-tier drops. It needs grindable things, etc., etc. I think the excitement of getting a rare drop that's worth 1 billion or two is insane.
Yeah.
There's no better feeling. But if every drop was like that, there are people like, I mean, don't take this the wrong way. You guys play RuneScape every day, right? There are people who play RuneScape once or twice a week, or only a couple of hours at a time. If they want to kill, I don't know, they want to grind even just use a Vindicta as an example. Their Vindicta kills maybe in a minute. They're only killing like 20 minutes on. They maybe get, let's say, 15 kills. The drop rate's 1 in 150. I know this is not how the maths works, but they've got to do 10 days of playing RuneScape to get a single Vindicta drop. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there is a balance of how rare do we actually want half of these mid-tier items to be. And I think to some degree, I've had this conversation with a couple of people in old school actually. Again, I can't really talk to the details of it, but like the way Yama's drop table works, I don't know if anyone in the chat knows, but we talked about bad luck mitigation and collection logs and what collection logs have done to RuneScape, good and bad. People grind for logs and then feel bad when they don't get to the drop that they need. Um, so they really want, you see enough Raziel logs on socials where they've got like 6 arm guards and no lanterns, or all pieces but not a piece. Yeah, they have bad luck mitigation shards for Yama, but none of it contributes to the collection log. So
Mm-hmm.
in at least it solves the Iron Man problem. Like, I don't mean literal Iron Man, that I want to grind my own gear problem. Um, but it doesn't solve the collection log problem, which again is what a lot of people have concerns about. I've been at Raziel for 3,000 kills. Where's my arm guard?
Yeah.
They don't have a problem of getting the arm guard because they could sell the 7 lanterns they've got and buy one. They want it for the log. And I think that's where you have to be careful that you don't try to solve both problems with one solution. Like, bad luck mitigation for the sake of collection logs isn't necessarily the best for the economy of the game, because you're
Mm-hmm.
essentially making all items, for argument's sake, the same price. Um, Anyway, that's a not Slayer topic. So again, don't know how we got here.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's a really interesting discussion point, and it's I think a good
Mm-hmm.
one. For what it's worth, like I am probably in a unique position here where I don't care about collection logs at all, and I don't mind if getting a collection log that is functionally a cosmetic takes a crazy amount of kills. I don't mind that too much. What I do take issue with more is exactly the thing that Yama fixes, which is if I go dry on this and I'm missing one piece, is there a way to make my own with a resource that I'm getting through killing it? So for chat's
Yeah.
benefit, the way Yama works is the oath plate gear. Can you make a horn out of the shards or no? Or
No,
is it just the okay? Got
I
it.
don't.
So
Well, the horn's not an armor piece.
it's also not as rare.
It's a separate thing. Don't worry about
But
the horn.
yeah, basically the main chase from Yama, it's this oath plate gear. It's really good. It's 1 in 600, 3 different pieces. It's very easy to not get a piece and go unlucky. As you're killing the boss, you're getting these shards. Once you've done enough kills to have a couple pieces, you'll have enough shards to then be able to make whatever piece you don't have if there's a piece you don't have. And I really like that solution because it's not only just like people sometimes make this, and I liked what Ryan said there about it's not necessarily an Iron Man account mode thing. A lot of players like to make their own gear and grind their own gear. It's not at all about, just the Iron Man players and making it like easier for them. People like grinding their own gear. People don't like, getting 5 helms and having nothing else. So anyway, to me, it's a really elegant solution. I like that it's not like a system behind the scenes. It's built into the game. And it also makes your GP per hour really consistent as a main account too. Because when you're not getting uniques, you're still getting something that is worth a portion of the uniques. Yeah, anyway, I think it's a sick solution, just as you brought it up.
I like the
That
middle
boss
ground.
is
It's kind of the middle ground between like ED2 and ED1. Where ED2 it's all just a unique item that you get, and ED1 is you're progressively making progress every single kill to make this armor. And I'm not a fan of the ED1 solution for items, but I'm a fan of the ED1 solution for, you're actually making progress every single kill. You're getting, GP and everything. So the kind of middle solution seems quite nice, where you're still having to go and grind those items for like a log if you want. But if you're just trying to get the armor, then you don't have to.
Yeah, that's essentially where, coming back to when I was saying earlier, people said they love Telos. Now, yes, it's an enjoyable fight, but they love the amount of money you could make. I think the same thing is when we talk about feeling, when we talk about skills, this is kind of like I say, I'm just repeating stuff, but it's just game design, is it needs to feel good. Getting drops needs to feel good. I would say that getting drops from Magister, same thing you kind of mentioned for ED1 there, is you just get bits of scripture, right? That ultimately you don't get that feels good moment of like,
Yep.
wow, rare drop. So you kind of need a bit of both. You need the boss to have a rare drop, but equally a grindable drop, so that you get both moments. It does have the gloves to mention the chat, but the gloves I
No one
wouldn't say is
cares.
a feels good moment in the sense of that we're referencing here. Mod Reaper has had some suggestions in the past around like unique, imagine like orb of a mascot from a mascot, and ultimately it's a very rare drop, but it's essentially I think it's like the Yama lockbox, but well, not no, actually, it's more you could just transmute it into any piece. So
Into any
essentially, if you get
item.
it as a drop, you would. The only questions there of transmuting to any piece, I know it's the same as the shard concept, is you basically just convert it into the most expensive piece when it's not collection loggable.
Yeah. So it
So,
kind
but
of
yeah, there's
becomes a bit
loads
of
of
a
it.
odd drop. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing because obviously, RS guy Ryan, he's primarily an Iron Man that wants the gear and has never cared about collection logs. Whereas I have never really played Nyan, and I very much do care about collection logs. So we have very different views on it because I will never basically ever like really kill a boss for the gear. I've probably bought it by the point, but I'm killing the boss for the collection log. Um, so my view has generally been I don't really care if it takes me a lot of kills because that's kind of the whole point of the achievement is that you're spending a lot of time there. I think what does feel frustrating for me is that when you eventually do get a drop, it's always the wrong drop. Um, so for me, it's more a dupe protection than a drops more commonly bad luck mitigation type of thing. Um, Like if I'm doing a massacre and I'm wanting the full armor set, either for a 9-man or for me, in my case, for the log, I'm wanting it to drop in an order rather than it like because if you add bad luck mitigation, so let's say the pieces then become on average more common, you still have that whole I can get 10 dupe boots before I get the helm type of thing, which
So you'd rather
even
the
though
drop rate didn't change, but it was weighted more towards the pieces you didn't have yet.
yes, so in the sense of like obviously there's the argument of some drops are just too rare, whatever however you play, whatever your goal is, but you would have a scenario where it might be exactly the same drop rates on average for the whole set, but it would, as a player, feel better because every armor piece you get actually contributes you progress.
This is where you have the cons, though, just as a note of, you mentioned Ryan and you mentioned yourself. Now use player C, who doesn't care about either of these and just wants to make money.
Just wants money.
They,
If they get the best
yeah,
drop first, they
yeah,
then have no reason to kill the boss,
exactly,
which is
yeah.
basically like, yeah, it's a tricky one to solve. I don't know if there's a perfect solution. Well, there probably isn't. Otherwise, it would have happened. There's always downsides to every solution.
Yama
There are
feels
some
like
good
such a good middle
solutions.
ground.
Yeah,
It
there are
does.
some good solutions.
I didn't like
but
Yama because it seemed really cool until I had to go and make the armor piece that I needed, and then it took me too long and I didn't enjoy it.
Oh yeah, it's like a
But
masterwork process, right? Once you
apart
get your
from that,
shards,
it was good. Okay, to be fair, I only did it on leagues, so the actual time investment felt worse than if I was playing the main game. It would probably feel perfectly fine.
fair enough. Yeah, sorry, Ryan, you were saying.
I was probably going to say there are definitely some good solutions, but like I said a bit earlier, is what you don't want to do is try to solve all of them at once. Like solving like I said, the bag like mitigation for the people who want to earn multiple items, e.g. the Iron Man thing, versus the I want collection of progress. Versus, you've got to ensure that you are solving them in the right way. So I don't think there is a single solution for all of them. It's probably multiple. And I think the way I'd love to see, like unification of bosses in general, we need to go back to Slayer after this conversation, but um, I'd love for all bosses to be in a better position of, there are no instance costs because our modern ones don't have it. Every boss has consistent behavior of how loot generally works. As an example,
Oh my god, luck for
e.g.,
dwarves.
e.g. for just how that sort of stuff works, how it works when you duo trio content. There are older bosses where it was always based on DP. Use a Virago example. There are many people who don't like doing Virago with their friends because they're not good enough, so they get no drops and it feels bad. So it's like unification of all of that, and then alongside that, when we talk about things like bad luck mitigation, I'd like a good solution all round. Like the Yammer example is very thematic. Someone in the chat mentioned about getting a contract for certain drops. That's really cool for the content. But if you want to apply this to every boss, you need to find a way that makes sense for all bosses. Otherwise, you get into the realms of this boss has it work in this way, and this boss has it works in that way, and it's very confusing. That's more the complex part. But it's the sort of thing I would love for us to be doing more of. Is like I said earlier, holistic views of the game because we have 25 years of awesome content and a few tweaks here and there in a lot of places completely like revives or refreshes content. But yeah,
Going to your
Slayer, good.
unification of
No, we can't. We're talking about
bro.
Slayer.
Okay. So going to a unification of drop tails for bosses. Completely agree. The reason like no one does group elite dungeons. Okay, some people do group elite dungeons. I haven't done group elite dungeons, right? Because the drop rates are just worse than solo. Whereas if you do something like Raksha, it's kind of the same in solo and duo because the way it's scaled. But then the downside, obviously, is that in elite dungeons, if you're a lower level player that's having issues soloing, you can just duo or trio. And because the drop rates scale the way they do, it means the boss fight then becomes easier because the boss fight doesn't scale. So I quite like that there's differences depending on what boss that is, because I think it allows players to kill bosses uniquely in different ways. So I would disagree. Back to Slayer.
Wait, chat's mad at me for going back to Slayer. They were vibing with this. Uh-oh.
Look,
What are we gonna
Slayer's
do?
finished. We're
Yeah,
on the next skill now.
I think Slayer's pretty finished. Invention next. We already did invention. Go back in the VOD. We already did that one. Pup, you don't get a Slayer point.
Oh.
Yeah, you derailed us too much. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I mean, you kind of know what mine is.
I'm kidding.
It's kind of the, fix the rewards. Whether that be like, I guess the mobs should give more meaningful items for the current year.
That's like
Probably
basic. I feel like
simple
we
one.
both said the same thing. I said reclass
Yeah.
in-game Slayer mobs from the 2010s to be appropriately leveled, so that like you get the rewards at the right time.
Yeah.
Also, Ryan, conscious of your time, how are you doing? I don't want to just like, send you through 28 more skills. If it's late.
Oh yeah, I
your
will not
time.
be here for all 28. I'll be here for like 27 more.
27 more. Okay.
No. Just do a few more skills. I'm just chilling.
He's
Okay.
just vibing.
Sounds
I
good.
feel
Yeah,
like
happy to.
We should hit up a combat one.
No combat.
No, I feel like we did a bit of a combat rabbit hole. It's gonna cause problems. I think we should do
It
skilling.
might
But
cause problems.
I was gonna say this too. You are welcome, Ryan, to join us with this literally any time. But what we can do is we could easily, if you wanted to, find a time this week, next week, whatever, and keep working through it until we've covered all of them, if you want to. Or we can also not do that. It's very much we're very flexible here at the RS Guy and PUP Productions.
He's trying to find a way to deny the invite, but gracefully.
Me? No. I'm we should continue with a few more because I'm happy to, and then you guys should continue with your RS Guy and PUP Productions version that you were doing before I gate crashed. And then if there's ever an opportunity to do more chatting, I will just, as always, impromptu. I'm not great at organizing a time. I feel like I have too much of a mismatched schedule to really do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, for what it's worth, you're always welcome, and you've added a ton to the discussion. It's always a pleasure to have you on. So you never need to. I saw you apologizing in the chat for derailing the stream, and it's like no. This is the whole point of the stream. So open invitation anytime. You're like, yeah, I could do some RuneScape discourse. We can pull up the Miro and get blasting. So.
But when I derail it, you shout at me.
I sure do, and you better not do it again.
I was thinking we do farming now.
You can do whatever skill you like. I was gonna say I think that keeping a conversation around, we could talk about combat or skilling, and I think given that you started with skilling, that's why I said avoid the combat skills, because we could talk about combat infinitely, and I feel like I have a lot to talk about in other areas.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, I agree. We can refocus on skilling. We can do combat at another time, but I also want you both to know that editor Nathan is so happy right now because he's been asking for me to do a podcast for 2 years, and we've effectively done a podcast today. So I think that's always a plus. Okay, so in terms of skills, is there anything that we are wanting specifically? I have some that I was thinking of, but we could.
I'm trying to kind of avoid the kind of simple-ish ones.
What were you thinking of?
I was thinking Herblore.
Okay, yeah, I'm down for Herblore.
Okay, so here's the thing about Herblore. I'm happy to lead this one off, and I understand that my perspective is more as an Iron Man player, but I don't even agree with that definition necessarily, because this is also something I have to go through on my main. The thing that annoys me about Herblore, it is the single most bloated skill in the history of the game, and the fact that it is a 72-step process in order to make a single overload, it genuinely upsets me and makes me feel pain, unlike anything else in this game. Like, there is not, it's bloat, but it's beyond bloat. The idea that you have to go all the way through supers and make them into extremes, or, I mean, on a main account, you can buy the extremes, but then you do a full recipe to make the overload, you do a full recipe to make it into a supreme, you do a full recipe on top of that to make it an elder, maybe you add even more potions to make a salve, and then at the end, you've got this omni potion that you put 100 different potions into. I absolutely despise everything about it. I don't even know what the solution is or what my one change would be, but it feels so bloated to me.
I
And
agree.
like as a minimum, I would genuinely change the recipes of all of those endgame potions, and I would make them significantly easier to get. Like, for all intents and purposes, if you added a Torsil to a superset and got a base overload, and then you added a different herb to that to make a supreme, and then you added primal pulp and a fell stalk to make an elder, I'm in. Done. I'm ship it immediately. It's just way too cumbersome to me.
Yeah, I
So
think
that'd be
the
my
kind
main
of the
thing I don't like about
repetition
Herblore.
of the like the extremes and then also having to add supers again is a little bit frustrating. Like I totally agree with you. It's all the higher level ones. It's not the kind of base level ones. Like a base level overload, I think is perfectly fine to make. It's when you go from there, it becomes a little bit annoying, especially with the salves. And then you have like weird. I think you have weird intricacies where you can make an elder overload or a salve in 2 different ways depending on which route you go. I think that's kind of very odd. I think it's great when if you have elder overloads and you're like, oh, I want to turn it into salves, then cool. But I think it just adds a lot of complexity and bloat. I think with the 120 Herblore update, they added a lot of really cool things that I think Herblore definitely needed. I'm thinking like power bursts. I've run out of options. Power burst. Basically, a lot of cool stuff that I think actually fits the modern game as it is. And I think those are fine. I like the tie-in with player-owned farms because obviously it ties in very nicely with farming, right? You need your herbs from farming. I think tying it in with player-owned farming with the 120 was very, very good, and I think done very well. Honestly, I think the main issue is kind of what Ryan said: is the amount of pots you need for overloads is a lot. Because in RS3, overload is your potion. There's not like no one cares about any of the other pots. It's an overload and then a bigger overload and then a bigger overload, and then that's kind of it. You don't really care about using an extreme magic. It's just a stepping stone to make an overload.
I'm also
Which I
curious on if there's
like.
data for this, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same situation as the lots of people augment their gear and then don't put perks on it because perks are scary. I'd be very curious to know how many people have a high Herblore level and do combat but don't use overloads. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a high amount.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of when we did our like a Masket release week event where we were just like helping people get their golden aura or whatever it was. One of the people that joined at one point was using it was like a 2-dose extreme necromancy potion, and they were 200 mil Herblore.
Yeah.
And
they
I asked them
just
about the
didn't wanna do
overloads, and they said they'd never made one before. They didn't know how.
Yep.
And I'm
They
curious,
are-
like if one person has that experience, not to sound like a middle school teacher where it's like, oh, please ask your questions, because if one person asked it, 10 other people probably had the same question. But then when I pull up this chart, it's like, yeah, damn. You know what? Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not even MTX because overloads used to be the standard way to train once you got to the level needed to do them. But now they're still really good and they're recommended. But there's a lot of other choices to train now, so I feel like you're not forced into that overload kind of pathway as you kind of used to be, which isn't a bad thing. You know, it's nice to have different ways to train the skills. But I think the fact that overloads are kind of the be all end all for combat is kind of tough, given that it's such a process to make. Like I made them on a group Iron Man, so I had someone else getting me stuff, and that was still pretty involved.
On the chart you just had up, Ryan.
Yes.
Sorry, I'll wait for your stream to update. Is what are we using? What's primal extract for in this?
You need it
You
to
need
make
it
primal
for the
extract for
elders.
the elders. So you go supreme plus extract and fellstock to make the elder, and then you add all this stuff to make the salve. I would argue the supreme to elder recipe is the only one that's actually like reasonable. It's 9 supremes, 9 primal extract, 9 fellstocks, and you get 9 elders.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think you're just showing one potion here. I mean, my general view is yes, I agree. Herblore, myself and Mod Ryan have said this because he said Herblore used to be his favorite skill. This once you start getting into bridging paths, like you could come from A or B to get to C,
Hmm.
um, and equally, I think once we allowed too much customization of potion, for example, I know what you're showing on screen right now, but like holy overload, aggro overload, searing overload, overload salve, holy aggro, like they're just like miscellaneous combinations of only the prayer renewal and only the prayer renewal and the aggression and then not the super anti-fire and only I
Hmm.
think that to be honest could be massively simplified down into you either have an overload or an overload salve. There, that's the decision you make. If you wanted any of the ones in between, it's bring overload plus 3 extra potions, super anti-fire, super yada yada yada. Obviously, you don't bring all the super anti-fires anyway. Sorry, you know what I'm saying. The super
Yeah.
anti-poison, etc. You just bring the one that's relevant to you for the content you're doing. Salve is just useful for, let's say, late game. I'd remove all those ones in between, and honestly, I wouldn't attach the in hindsight, I don't think attaching things like aggro potion to overload made sense. I think it's the sort of one where you could have kept the overload as like its own type. Like really, what was the problem with carrying multiple potions? I think ultimately it came down to, well, I need to drink all 3 of these potions every 6 minutes, which we solved by saying, well, what if it's one click? We could have solved it by saying, well, what if there was a right click? I'm just making this up. Right click chug on potion. It drinks 6 doses at once rather than one. So it's you
Hmm.
have to just click all 3 every 30 minutes. Like that would have been easier.
The
The
guzzle
im
button.
space, yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly, guzzle. I think you could simplify it down and make more clear decisions about what you can and can't have. And I think the im space comment that Octagon Cake said in your chat is a big design thing as well. I think that the inventory exists as a purposeful bit of guardrails. There are 28 inventory slots. Over the RuneScape's years, we have basically made inventories that sit in your inventory, whereby you care less about your 28 slots because you've got a pouch that holds your runes, and another thing that holds your other runes, and a thing that holds your supplies, and a thing that holds your gems. Inventory's kind of changed. I don't think that it's a meaningful decision if you want to bring multiple potions to use up multiple slots. I think shoving it all into one potion has made it complex because to the point that Pup made earlier for something completely different, because overload salves exist, just as an example, your high level players will make them and they will tell everyone else to make them. For what it's worth, I do not use salves.
I don't either. I've never
Never,
made one on my
yeah,
iron. Not
yeah,
one.
never made one either.
I can't
I just
think. I don't know
use
the last
Elder
time I didn't
overloads.
use a salve. That's the other thing.
And
I
I,
don't
and I
remember
think
the last time I didn't.
it's just overhead that's A, unnecessary, and B, adds to the complexity of, I know you probably don't need me to say this, but like when you make videos or when you're streaming, people are like, what is that? Oh, it's this thing, and I need to explain it. Like it's a harder game to explain because of these nuances that arguably aren't adding much. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah.
I agree. I mean, it's a weird one because the only reason I actually use the cells is probably just for the prayer, and I could just bring a super prayer renewal, but like I just don't. Don't ask me why. I don't know. But like, it's that thing where 95% of players probably just use the cell that do use the cell are using it for the prayer. It's very rare you actually need the anti-fire or the anti-poison, but because it exists, people make it use it. I
I
remember
yeah.
there was. I remember I don't actually know if it's fixed now, if it's actually still a thing, but I remember there was a lot of people complaining because the overload timer was slightly different to the aggro potion timer. Um, and people were frustrated that um, you'd use your overload or your aggro, I don't know which one, but then the other one would run out 30 seconds later. And I think that's um, entirely valid. Um, and then syncing up was good. Whether that's done or not, I don't remember. But yeah, I think aggro overloads are too much. You're now just combining too many things into too many things,
The
and it does become very messy.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the solution that's been gone with Herblore, right, is to make more potions of more combinations.
Hmm.
In reality, kind of like old school's thing, to be honest, which is it could have been an inventory mod like object that's just cool, or whatever you want to call it, for a moment, that holds multiple potions that when you drink it, it drinks one of each. That way you didn't have to turn your overload into overload salve plus plus blah 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 blah. You just have overloads, you have prayer renewals, and you have aggro, for example, and you put all three of them in this single item and you drink the item. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called on old school. That's
It's
thank
the
you,
chugging
Dad. I just
barrel.
couldn't remember it. And it's the sort of thing where at least that way, the combination is in the player's hands, not in Jagex's hands, of which we've then bloated the skill guide and bloated all this stuff. We've basically said, here are your top 10 potions, and you've said, well, I want to drink these 5 together, or these 6, or these 3, and that's up to you as a player. That's a much better position to be in, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I was
But yes,
gonna
I'm
mention
doing it, it's
too,
hard.
Herblore was my first 200 mil, and it was my favorite skill as well. So similar to Robin, I think. And it's just fully fallen out of favor with me, where I just don't enjoy it anymore because the recipes are so... It used to feel like you could train it in any way you wanted. Like initially on my first account, I made regular prayer potions all the way to level 90 because that was really, really inexpensive. And then now it feels like the second you get to level 80, you need to start preparing for the 10,000 overloads that you're going to be making eventually. So it just feels very... yeah, it feels very fixed, where you just have to follow these really, really lengthy, convoluted recipes early on, or else you're gonna feel like you missed out.
Yeah, Hebler was my my second 99. I think my second 200 mil actually as well. I enjoyed it a lot, but now it's just not it's not as simple as it used to be. It just used to be like, you know, vial, unfinished, secondary, all in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we want to get into changes and votes?
Yes. I'm gonna think of a different change that isn't the overload thing.
I mean, my changes would be simplify the skill. Again, as you'll hear me say, it's a lot of streamline it. Same thing we did with Slayer. Simplification of potions. We do not need half of them to exist. They just add to the bloat and understanding of the game. Equally, look at what the problems people actually have with Herblore or the wider picture, e.g., drinking doses that are 6 minutes long made sense years ago, still makes sense maybe in the old school light, but in modern RuneScape, with the way our buffs work and how much you can stack them to 30 and 60 minutes, is there a better world where you drink a potion for 30 or 60 minutes rather than having to, especially with the way we bank and stuff, right? I know I'm digging a bit deeper, but it's Herblore owns potions, which is most modern bosses, you do the boss and you teleport. So it's kind of irrelevant to carry a full potion. That's more relevant to Slayer tasks, etc. It's just like, why not just... RuneScape's move more to long form buffs is what I would probably say, and I think that a lot of potions could be converted.
Makes sense. Pup, do you have one, or do you have the same as my one, or the same as Ryan's one?
My one is the same as your one, but just to add something different,
Okay.
I'm going to say remove Vuln bombs.
Oh, love that. You're not going to
I
get
think
voted
they
in,
are-
but I fully agree. I couldn't
That's
agree
okay.
more.
So
It's just less important than this one to me.
So the thing with Vuln bombs is the time cost is just nothing. There's no, in using it in combat, there's no thought process of like, oh, should I Vuln now or not? It's always just click it. There's no downside. It's just, you know, you don't cost any time. It doesn't cost any adrenaline. It doesn't cost any HP. It's just a free DPS buff that you just have active all the time. And I think, yo, I hate Mod Ryan so much. Yeah, but the flip side, you know what? I'll say the flip side of this that is not combat related, is because it's the best XP an hour method. Vuln bombs are surprisingly cheap because that's all anyone ever makes. Imagine if a Vuln bomb was a mil to use. I feel like that drastically changes. Yeah, you'd probably still
I'd
use
still
it, but
throw
then
300 a minute.
but then other people might not. And I feel like then it feels more like a worthwhile thing to be using. I still hate it, but I think it's just a cheap, pointless item.
My
personally.
issue with that, thinking of like, what if it was more expensive, is then people would just be annoyed that they couldn't afford to use it. And then you're back at degradable gear, where you have to think about if it's worth it. Where
That's
yeah,
valid.
my main thing for Vuln Bombs and not liking them is just like the fact that it is an item that you always universally want, and it's just a thing you have to hit every minute. And to me, it adds absolutely zero value whatsoever to anything other than the fact that it's like a skilling economy thing and a training method. But in
Yeah.
combat, I think it actually hurts the skill ceiling in terms of it hurts mid-level players, because I would bet most mid-level players, I would need data on this obviously, don't use Vuln Bombs. I'd expect a lot of early end game players don't use Vuln Bombs, don't know how, or don't think they're worth it, don't know they exist, or think they're too expensive. And because of that, it just further widens the already really high gap between
The whole
kind of decent people and really end game people, where
The skill gap.
arguably you're giving 10% damage to the people that need it the least.
Yeah.
You know, I don't
Definitely.
have data to hand, especially, but I'm actually kind of curious now to look because, as much as it sounds like I'm joking, I reckon there's a distribution of Vuln Bomb usage whereby it's massively used by a percentage of the top, which are the people that just spam throw it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
versus
I just
like
spam them.
because once you get to a stage where you're just rich enough, you don't even think about the cost of them. You just throw in them. Is it vulnerable? I don't even know. I just throw it anyway. Like
Yeah.
again,
Yep.
this is not even a herblore conversation. I think Von Bombs is nothing to do with herblore in theory. As a skill, it's more just an output.
Yeah. Well, I guess the reason I said that is because I think apart from the overload mess, I think Herblore is kind of perfect. To be honest, I think, yeah.
Coming
So
back to what we said earlier about simple, I was mentioning with skills and identity. Herblore is quite literally a use vials, fill them with. It's essentially make obviously the fantasies make potions, but there is always a focused resource which is vial and herb plus tertiary
Plus
ingredient.
extra. Yep.
Obviously, that gets bigger over time, etc. And the output is always potions, which by fantasy definition, sorry, is the fantasy, but the output is more buffs, whereas cooking's output is more health. Obviously there is food that gives you some buffs and there are potions that give you some health, but by definition the difference between those two skills is more focused. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, simple is still good. That's it. Vote time, Ryan.
all right, we could do vote time. I don't need to leave like immediately, by the way, but in the
Ryan
next
just
little
sent me a
bit.
big message. He said, "I've got to go. Please be quiet."
What was the reason? What was the reason I gave in my long message?
I didn't read it. He said, "Got to go get Vuln Bomb data."
Oh, did I? I was gonna go get Volnbomb data. Interesting. No, I was showing off my Volnbomb foot pedal because in the Necromancy race, I was ranked 10. Everybody was training at Abyssal Savages. I keybound Volnbomb to a foot pedal, and then over the course of that 10-hour night, I threw I think 10,000 Volnbombs, and I actually passed 6 people and ended up third.
Wow.
Yep, in
Yeah,
one night. 10K in one night. What an animal. I was very tired at that point. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree with all points. Also, can I just
Yeah.
say, I would love to see some of this stuff addressed in like end game rebalances or whatever. I know a lot of it's like not in scope, but to me, like the game would flow so much better with a lot of these, especially the smaller changes. But with that said, vote time. Pup, remove Vuln Bombs. How do we feel, team? I'm gonna vote 1 for you because I feel like chat's gonna blast you over a
They might
negative
buff you, but that's
10%
okay.
DPS buff. And
As long as your one goes through,
I'm gonna
it's
front
fine.
run you with a 1 because I think you might need it.
Thank you. Oh, maybe I don't need it.
I have enough time for 1 more skill or misc questions. Okay.
Oh, maybe I do need it.
Oh, yeah, I told you. Yeah, goodbye. Told you.
I
It
forgot
was
a
never
nerf.
gonna happen. It's you're right, but it's a hard sell. All right. Next up, reduce overload recipe by 50%. I don't care how. I literally don't care how.
Yes. just
Let's
press 1.
see how the people are feeling.
The non perfectionist, that's not the term I'm thinking of. Basically looking at these survey results, it's like, would you like potions to be cheaper? Yes or no. As a player, it's like, well, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the. It goes back to the whole like the game health updates they've been doing, where like some of them are very healthy for the game, but no player will kind of want
Be
them
happy about it, yeah.
necessarily.
Perfect pass. Consider it done.
Oh yeah, that passed. And we'll go for Ryan's, which is simplify the skill, streamline the skill, remove the bloated potions, look at the length of potions for longer than 6 minutes. Can I also say good work being
Which is
very specific with your one change? Just remove
98.4%.
well, okay, your change is effectively remove
everything
all the
better.
bad stuff and fix all of the bad stuff and make it better. Completely vague. Love that. I can tell you've been rehearsing for the RuneFest roadmap reveal. I can tell you're ready. 100%. Actually shocking that
I hope the new
54
skill
chatters agreed on something.
is on the roadmap reveal.
Absolutely insane.
Damn, my 2 didn't come in time.
Unlucky. I
Ah,
was too quick with it. Okay, so Ryan, would you rather quickfire a skill or take some questions for chat? I know that you don't do a ton of streaming, but want to do more. So if you want to just take over my stream for a couple minutes and answer questions, you're more than welcome to.
Honestly, it's whatever people want. If they want us to look at another skill or anything miscellaneous.
I feel like chat would
also
probably like
works.
to ask some questions.
Yeah, we
I
can
get
do
that
some. We can
feeling.
do a little question period. Why don't we do that? Just a quick question period. Feel free to just grab whatever questions you want, and you can start talking about them if you'd like.
How tall am I? 6'2".
So you truly are tall.
Not the
So
Ryan.
question
that's a
I thought we were answering.
weird
but-
way of saying 5'6.5". Maybe it's a language barrier.
Have they addressed perk RNG for invention?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, we talked
Yeah,
about
we
it.
discussed that.
Wait.
Yeah, we super
Oh,
did.
sorry. Sorry, yes. Have we addressed it in terms of conversation? Yes. Have we
Yes.
addressed it in game? No. Sorry, I read it as like we.
Yeah, not like not a company policy. We just a today's stream. We.
What is your least favorite quest and why is it as a first resort? This is not as a first resort. What is my least favorite quest? Good question.
It's probably as a first resort.
Is Tavia's too rare compared to other hero items after changes? That's a good question. Defining too rare is probably abstract. Is subjective. Sorry for hero items. I don't actually know how many come into the game in comparison to when Merchant was around, but it was adjusted appropriately. Actually, that's probably all I'll say on the drop rates for that. Will we add a two-handed necro weapon? The general idea was no. Not to say we shouldn't. Sorry. The thing was there is no reason to right now. At least
I
there's
have
no
to agree.
benefit to it unless we wanted to make specifically something valuable in that sense. There are some good questions here that I'm not answering only because either A, it's not the best place to answer them on someone's stream that isn't official. So it's not that I'm ignoring them in a bad way, I'm just not answering them. Are there any plans to address the amount of upkeep that irons have to do, EOF, divine charges, runes, etc.? I think in general, we were kind of talking about it a bit earlier, there needs some holistic views, like as part of whether the rebalance updates or cleanup updates, to have a look at these things. Solving it all in one go is unfeasible. It's just not feasible based on the amount of things going on. But ultimately, having a look at upkeep in general, I think is something we want to look at. Like I mentioned earlier, the barrier to entry is not often actually doing the thing. People get overwhelmed by the amount of information available online for what they should take, even though half of it is not actually needed.
You're getting blasted with questions. That's very
Yeah.
exciting. There's appetite.
Someone asked, what has
Someone
been your
said-
favorite change you've made to the game?
What was that, sorry?
What has been your favorite change you've made to the game?
Honestly, I've worked at Jagex for 12 or so years now. There's been too many. I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, maybe it's 1:15 a.m. Maybe I don't have a good answer for it. I think I've enjoyed many things over the last 12 years. Changes, content, value.
Celebration lamps.
No, not that one.
Sorry. That was the first thing that I saw. Oh, you were talking about how great deep sea fishing was because you worked on it. Ah, I see what happened here. It all makes sense now.
I see how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, he made Rapture, so that out of them, that's my favorite.
The list isn't up to date either. It misses things like Mascot, bunch of other stuff. But
Quick, add
Would
it.
you take any credit for like the road to restoration? Surely that's a
nah, it's
big
all
one.
the team. Nah, it's the
Okay,
RuneScape team.
that sounds like a leader, a humble leader. But you are part of the RuneScape team.
What's the process from this stream for it being implemented? Great question. There is no
Ryan waves
process.
the magic wand, and by next Monday, it's done.
This is
Yeah.
just a casual conversation talking about all things about the game we love. What other quick ones are there? Someone said Vorkath question mark. If by that you mean when are we remastering Vorkath? Not really something I'd answer on the stream. But I didn't ignore your question.
And yeah, to the previous question, this is all just spitball. Like, it's all just enjoying RuneScape discourse, talking about skills, talking about problems, getting your guys' feedback as well. This isn't like to implement these changes necessarily, but it's a fun little discussion, temperature check. It's a good way to talk about things that we like and don't like about the game. And, you know, maybe like somewhere, maybe when we talk about mining, one of us will come up with like a very simple change that would take 3 minutes to do that makes the skill way better. So, yeah. It is all just that.
Question about addressing have we addressed every skill becoming the same thing, like masterwork, smithing, fletching, runecrafting, crafting? Nothing to really say in detail on that, but it like is an awareness thing. We've seen the player comments around it when we've been doing these skills, and kind of what I alluded to earlier, where it is good for skills to be similar, but equally they should be different. It might sound contradicting, but similar and different at the same time. There's a lot of value. They need their own identities, even if they are trained or dealt with in the same way, the same sort of way.
I have a mini segue with that, which is I think one of the reasons a lot of skills feel the same is because the make X interface, and I absolutely despise it. And I was wondering, as a general for all skills, I do not like the make X interface because of how slow it is. That's the only reason I don't like it. Is it's intrusive, it's a big pop-up, and it takes so long to open that when I switch to playing a game like Old School, and then I switch back, everything I do in RuneScape feels slow and clunky because of the make X interface. But I don't know if people have strong thoughts about that, or if you have any thoughts about it, Ryan.
I do have a view of I don't think all skills should become make X skills. I think that, again, there's a time and a place, and make X was a quality of life thing at once upon a time, right? You know, fletching, herblore, etc. weren't make X skills originally. You would spam click between the two, you know, bowstring, etc. Make arrows, make bolts. I think that there is time and a place. I think to the triangle we were discussing earlier, it would be good if skills had lean back AFK make X versions and equally non. That's not saying all skills should have that, but try to keep the answer short. Probably a longer one.
Yeah, no, all good. That was my question. I don't know if you want to grab like one or two more quick ones, and then I mean you can also continue yapping on PUP stream. I can just raid over to him and y'all can keep going, but I need to go to IKEA before they close because my homestead is in shambles. Lots of things.
But more specifically, I'm intrigued.
We're getting ambient lighting. We're getting some plants. We're getting some planters. We're getting some dishes. We need a shoe mat. We also need dinner.
That Ryan,
that's important.
Now that in America, your only two shops you've ever been to are IKEA and Costco. You've not been anywhere else.
Aren't those the only two shops that are important? We went to Target a couple times as well.
Oh, big day.
Is there a particular reason RS3 has slower dialogue in quests and you can't spacebar through it as fast as Old School? The answer should be no. I'm actually curious to know. I'm going to have to test that myself.
I think Old School is snappier.
It all feels snappier. I agree with that.
Everything feels snappier, except for the GE search function. I've noticed there's an extra tick before you can start typing on Old School's GE, and it bothers me so much.
Okay, I am gonna jump, but I'll raid over to you, Pup, if you guys want to continue for a bit. You're more than welcome
I will also jump because I have things to do before I go to bed. But thank you very much for having me on. It's always good fun. Even if we derail the conversation, I take all blame for that.
No, of course,
That's
an
okay.
absolute pleasure. Guys, chat, can we get some W's for Ryan coming on,
Dub.
chatting about RuneScape? It's super appreciated. Genuinely means a lot. You're always welcome here. And yeah, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much for Mod
You
Ryan.
too.
And
Thank you.
for short Ryan, I will probably also be ending, so we may have to find someone else to raid.
Sounds like a plan. Or I could raid you, and then you just have an even bigger decision to make. But sounds good.
Oh.
Chat, we'll continue going through the skills another day, of course. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Appreciate it. We'll get this out on YouTube at some point as well. Although with my current upload schedule, expect it in like 2029 would be my guess. But yeah, thanks everyone. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
See
Bye,
ya.
Ryan. Bye, Pub.